Adventures of Asher Robin, God's Pirate. Book 1, Dawn of the Greatest Treasure Hunt. Chapter 1,
The Making of God's Pirate.
This is a story about a pirate. Not just your ordinary, swashbuckling, stinky, golden-toothed, oversized, greedy, awful, horrible, mean, dirty pirate. No. This is a story about a pirate who is nothing like those things. This is God's pirate. You may be thinking, God has a pirate? He sure does. He sought one for himself. A little boy named Asher Robin, who was sadly taken from his parents at the very young age of 3. Well, he grew up on a pirate ship on the open seas. The captain kept him as a little pet boy. He would sleep in the captain's quarters, run around, eat the scraps, but the captain slowly began to love this little boy. There was something special about him. A twinkle in his eyes, a love in his heart, tenderness and innocence in his voice. Well, these were the prayers of his parents becoming true over him, that he would be safe, favored, and loved. They hoped it would be by them, but it turned out that this captain had a good eye for Asher. So he kept him safe from all the other villages. He took him along on all the raids, and Asher got to learn the ways of being a pirate. Yes, at first, he was learning how to be an awful, stinky, greedy, horrible pirate, but he wouldn't be that way for long. You see, there's something else really special about Asher Robin. He can read. Yeah, that's right. You might be thinking, well, I can read too. Well, back in those days, in the pirate days, very few men who lived on the seas could read. There weren't any books around, and they were often little boys and troublesome teenagers who didn't do very well at the schools on the shore, and so they took to the sea. So none of the people he knew could read, but Asher could. He was taught by his mama when he was super young, and he kept at it even after he was taken by the pirates, even after he forgot what his parents looked like. Papa. He kept on reading. He would read whatever he could, whenever he could. If they went to a village and the pirates raided everything, he would find a book for himself and he'd take it. Sure, he felt guilty about taking that book, but he was a pirate after all, and pirates stole things. Well, one day, things changed for Asher Robin. He had just turned 10, and the captain decided that it was time to make him a real pirate. You see, not all pirates, pirates don't just steal things, they also hurt people. One of the ways that they did it was force men to walk the plank. They'd stick a board out into the ocean, usually in shark-infested waters, and they'd make someone walk and jump off. Well, it was a horrible thing to do, and so the captain, being a horrible man, he wanted Asher to force somebody to walk the plank. "I can't do it," said Asher. "Why not? You're a pirate, me boy. It's time to get your pirate boots on and earn your pirate eye patch and do things like this, you see." "I just can't do it," said Asher. "I won't do it. That's just wrong." "You see me do it countless times. You never said anything then," said the captain. "But I can't do it. That's what I'm saying. But you're a pirate." "Well, maybe I'm not a pirate," said Asher in protest. Well, they fought for a while, arguing about whether or not a pirate should do this or a pirate should do that. Finally, Asher said, "I'm going ashore." The captain was so angry, but what would he do? He loved this boy, so he let him go. He gave him a little ship, some moldy bread and some sour juice, and set him off. Well, there Asher was, a lonely pirate on the open seas, rowing toward the shore. The problem was, they had just raided the village that he was going back to. Well, he hoped that they would accept his plea for help. Somebody might take him in, somebody might give him a job, somebody might help him earn money to be able to go somewhere, someday, something. He felt a little hopeless as he rowed and rowed and rowed, but at least he didn't have to live with himself having forced somebody to walk the plank. It was then, on those cold, stormy nights,
What's walk the plank?
That's when they make somebody walk off the boat, jump into the water. It's very mean. It was then, on those cold, stormy nights, that Asher thought about his life. He had been a pirate for 7+ years. He had thought he lived a good life. He had thought he liked it. But now that he thought about all the things and all the people screaming of the villages that they plundered, he realized being a pirate was horrible, awful, stinky, mean. He didn't want to be a pirate anymore, but that was the only thing he knew. He was a pirate. One of his teeth were black and probably would be gold one day. He just knew he was a pirate. But he didn't like doing what all the other pirates did. So he kept rowing. Rowing and rowing. And finally he got to a shore. It wasn't the shore of the mainland that they had come from. It was the shore of a little island. It was a pretty small island, but it looked comfortable. He was tired of rowing all night, so he hopped out. It was early in the morning, and he could see crabs flittering or crawling around the sand and little doves flittering around the trees. Coconut trees. Oh, coconuts. What delicious things. He climbed up the trunk of a tree, took down a coconut, broke it open, and drank the milk from within. Oh, it was delicious and refreshing.
Papa, I knew he would climb that tree.
You just knew it, hey? Yeah. It was so good. Well, Asher looked around, and sure, it was a small island, but there was plenty of fish on the shore. There was doves if he ever got that hungry, and lots of coconuts. Maybe, just maybe, Asher would stay here for a little while. He was given some of the books from his captain. Well, they had got salt water splashed on them during the stormy boat ride there. That's okay. He would flip through and try to read what he could, although he had already read those ones 3 times. For the first night was just fine. His belly was full. He had made himself a little fire. He fell asleep to the sound of doves cooing, crabs crawling, waves splashing, fish leaping, and the moon was shining bright over a black, clear sky. This, Asher Robin said, this is a pirate's life that I could live. Alone, out here. No one to bother.
Papa,
And no one to bother me.
Cabin? Was there a mini cabin?
No cabin, but he'll probably build one. And then the strangest thing happened the next day. You wouldn't believe me if I told you. But I'll tell you anyways, even if you won't believe me. But it did happen, I promise you. Something washed up on shore.
What was it?
It wasn't a bottle with a message in it. It was a treasure chest. Some kind of treasure chest. No, it didn't have gold in it or rubies. Get that out of your mind. It wasn't that kind of treasure. It was a box. Sealed tight. In fact, the box was wrapped completely in glue and cloth so no water could get in. It looked just like a square sheet that had dried out in the sun. Well, when Asher got it, he figured, I better open this thing. Whatever's in this package, somebody wanted to protect. Somehow they tossed it into the ocean, or maybe it fell, or a ship had gone under, and this had floated back up. So he took a rock that he had sharpened out of a spearhead, and he started to cut at it. It took a long time to get through. It was like a cast. It was so thick took almost all morning to cut it open, but finally, he was able to open the chest. Inside, you wouldn't believe, there was a book, bound in leather, fine leather, tied with a rope. He untied the rope, opened the book. On the front, it said, "To Asher, my dearest son." He thought, there's no way that this was me. This is some other kid named Asher. But then, on the bottom, it said, "Love, Papa, Tom Robin." There was a man out there named Tom Robin who loved this kid named Asher, called him son. He was Asher Robin. All of a sudden, Asher got excited. He realized that this was a book from his papa. But how in the world did it ever get there? Well, that is something that I will have to tell you later. But for now, you will know what Asher knows. Absolutely nothing, except that this book had come from his papa. And what a treasure it was for him to receive. He turned to the next page, and it read, "The Holy Bible." He had no idea what that was, but he started to read it from page 1. He read it, and he read it, and he read it, and there was story after story, wild things about how the world was made and how the world was once covered in water and all these crazy things and these families and traveling and kidnapping and slavery. And he was enthralled. He was enraptured. He could not read it enough. Before he knew it, Asher was 11. He had spent nearly a year on that island. In that time, he had built himself a lovely little cabin. He had planted different kind of plants that had washed up on shore. He made himself crab meals every weekend. He would feast on pigeons. He would have their scrambled eggs in the morning. Coconuts every day. Fishing. One time he caught a shark and he ate that too. Oh, he was living an amazing life. On throughout that entire year, he was reading the Bible. His favorite part was when he got to the thing called the book of Matthew. And it introduced a guy named Jesus. What an amazing person that guy was. But then he got to the book of John. And then he got to the book of Acts. And he was learning about churches and relationships with God through Jesus and forgiveness from sins and Romans. And then he got to 1 Corinthians. He realized that there was so much to life that he hadn't experienced. And that the world written in this book was absolutely different than the one that he lived. But still, there were people who got shipwrecked. There were people who got stranded on islands and bit by snakes, and they were fine. And Asher was amazed at what he was reading. Then he got to a verse that said,
"For he that is called in the Lord, being a servant, is the Lord's freeman. Likewise also he that is called, being free, is Christ's servant. Ye are bought with a price. Be not ye the servants of men. Brethren, let every man wherein he is called, therein abide with God."
Something pressed upon Asher's heart that he still was a pirate. He had been a pirate his entire life. It's all he knew. In fact, there were hundreds and thousands of pirates on the sea who didn't know a thing about this Jesus, didn't know a thing about the Bible, didn't know a thing about God's love for them and his forgiveness. So Asher determined to be exactly like that man Paul, and to ride ships and to travel to new peoples and to tell everybody he could about the forgiveness from their sins through Jesus. Asher realized right then and there, he wasn't just a pirate, he was God's pirate.
The Adventures of Asher Robin, God's Pirate. Book 1. Dawn of the Greatest Treasure Hunt. Chapter 2. The Friend That Washed Up on Shore. The year that Asher Robin spent on the island was a lot of fun for him. He was very excited to read that Bible and to learn about it, and to feel a new calling by God to take to the seas once more and to find his pirate captain, old pirate crew, and tell them about Jesus, to truly be God's pirate. But one day, after he had made himself coconut tea. Oh, did I not tell you about coconut tea? Well, I'll tell you real quick now. On cold evenings, Asher Robin would start a fire
and place a coconut close to the fire, not right in the fire, but near it, near enough to feel its heat. Well, the milk inside the coconut would start to boil. Of course, you got to poke a hole so that the steam get out and you can hear when it's boiling. Then finally, when it's done, you can take the coconut, wrap it in some banana leaves, and open up the top, slowly drink. You can pour it into a cup if you want, or drink right from the coconut. Well, you'd want to make sure it's a little bit cool. But anyways, what comes out is this delicious coconut tea. Try it sometime. It's very good. Anyways, he was sitting having some coconut tea, hearing the splash of the waves and the pigeons and the crabs and fish jumping, all such things. Then he heard something strange. It sounded like a raft, creaking of wood, rubbing against each other like 2 pieces or 3 pieces roped together, or some kind of ship fuselage just crashing against the shore. It sounded something like that. Well, this was a little strange to him, and so he looked out into the darkness, and behold, he could see the shape of a person. A person. That's right, a person. It had been a year since he saw a person, and now, here, behold, before him was a person. It was a little person, even smaller than Asher Robin. Just a kid. "Hello?" shouted Asher Robin. "Help! Help!" shouted the voice of a little boy, while Asher Robin stood from the fire in his coconut tea and ran on over to where the boy had washed up on shore. He had ridden on that sorry little raft, which really was just a bunch of broken planks of wood. He had ridden on it across the sea from some ways and landed right at Asher Robin's private island. Well, when he got to him, the boy was in a sorry state. He was all wet. He couldn't tell if it was from the ocean or tears. His eyes were red. His lips were parched. He could tell that he had been at sea for quite some time, maybe a few days, without food or without water. So Asher Robin quickly took him back to the fire, dragging him through the sand, gave him some fresh water that he had gathered earlier that day, and fed him little bits of the fish that he had cooked for himself. Well, that little boy ate, and he drank and he ate, until he felt quite full and quite sick, I'll have you. This caused him to fall fast asleep. He slept by that fire for the entire night, and the next day he woke up in the evening. Asher Robin had busied himself gathering more leaves and made a little cover for the boy, and he figured he would show him his cabin eventually, but he didn't want to startle him by having him wake up somewhere else, and so little boy came to under the stars, or under a light blue sky. Stars were out, the moon could be seen, the sun was still setting. It was quite a beautiful day, quite a beautiful evening. And there was Asher Robin, sitting, waiting, looking expectantly at this little boy. "Hello," said Asher Robin. Where am I?" said the little boy. "Well, that's hard to say, but you're on an island, and you're safe with me. My name's Asher Robin." Oh, Asher, my name is Shiloh. It's nice to meet you." "It's nice to meet you too, Shiloh. Say, where do you come from?" "I come from a little fishing island. It can't be far from here, but our vessel was attacked by pirates." Well, at this point, I should tell you that Asher Robin got a little sorry for the boy, but a little excited. Well, there were pirates nearby, and that was a good sign for him and his ministry. "I'm a pirate," said Asher Robin. And then the boy was startled. His eyes went wide, and he dropped his coconut. He stood to his feet and tried to run, but he was so weak that he fell in the sand, and he said, "No, help, I can't. I don't like pirates. Pirates are not good. No, get away from me." Wait, said Asher Robin. I'm not just any pirate." He realized he had left out an important detail. I'm God's pirate." It was the first time Asher Robin had ever introduced himself as such. It was a title that he felt was truly his, but at the same time, he wasn't really a pirate by trade, because he wasn't really doing the work of a pirate. He wasn't God's pirate, and because he wasn't really doing the work of God's pirate. But He knew who he was supposed to be, and so he said that. Well, Shiloh looked a little puzzled, and so he said, God's pirate? God doesn't have a pirates. Shiloh said, well, he sure does. He does now, at least. That's me. I'm Asher Robin, God's pirate. Okay, well, is that a bad thing or a good thing? Well, it's a very good thing, said Asher. My mission is to take to the seas and to find pirates and, well, to tell them about the good news of Jesus and hope that they'll turn to him and away from their wicked ways and be very good for you and your community. The little boy sat still. Well, that does sound good if they stop being bad pirates, I suppose. Oh, my mama and papa would be so worried about me. When our ship was attacked, I went overboard and, I guess I made it here okay, and I'm sure they were safe too because they got away. But I could see them rowing, and I was calling for help, but they didn't hear me amongst the waves, and it was terrible. But I know they're safe. I just know it. But I can't. I need to get back to the island. I need to get back to my mom and dad. Asher Robin
Papa.
sympathized with Shiloh's perspective.
Papa.
He understood it, but
Papa.
he himself hadn't felt that way
Papa.
because his parents were.
I need to tell you.
He had.
Now. I don't want Shiloh, which is me, to get back to his parents. I want the parents to not want the boy.
I have to get back to my parents, said Shiloh. Asher Robin understood how Shiloh felt. Although he hadn't seen his parents for many, 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 many years and had forgotten what they looked like, he knew in his heart he would love to see them again one day, if they were alive or wherever they were. Maybe one day he would find them. But he figured if he could get this little boy back to his parents, he would be doing what he had almost wished Captain Griffin to do, to return him to his parents. Well, I think that's what a God's pirate would do, said Asher Robin aloud. Is to take you to your parents, of course. But you should get strong first. You can barely run. Let's get you some more food in you and some more rest, and you can drink coconuts, and I'll teach you the ways of seafaring if you like. I'm pretty handy at sea, said Shiloh. After all, I am a fisherman, or at least I will be. Anyways, if we could set sail tomorrow, that would be good, because I'm sure they are dead worried for me. I think I was out on sea for 2 nights. I don't know, and I don't even know where we would be. Is there a way where we can find out where we are, if you don't know? Wait, how did you get here, Asher Robin? Oh, I washed up here too. Not so much. I was rowing, you see. I was thrown overboard, or at least I was let go by my pirate captain. Yeah, I didn't like doing piratey things anymore, or at least bad piratey things, and so we parted ways, and he sent me off with a little skiff. I've got a boat we can use. It might need some more pitch if we're going that long. I've only been using it close by, you see. Oh, okay. Well, I know how to make pitch out of banana leaves. Yeah, sure. So do I. Okay. Well, we can set at that right away tomorrow morning. And I guess we need to get our bearings straight. What? You see, okay, it's fall right now, and the sun is there, and so I think it looks like it's setting that way, and I know my village is west, and so if we traveled east, then we ought to head toward the sun, right? Asher Robin laughed. Well, I suppose so. You know where it is. The mainland's this direction, north, so if we head northwest, perhaps we'll find it. Yeah, it's only a day's sail from the mainland, but that's due west, so I do think we better bear west after all. Well, that's a good deal, said Asher Robin. Oh, we'll try set sailing toward the sun tomorrow, and, we'll see where that takes us, but I know if we pray, God will set us straight. Well, Asher and Robin, they had a delightful dinner that day. Asher went and got some crabs and made Shiloh his favorite, a crab stew. Well, what you do is you take crabs and you take other shellfish, you boil it together, Normally, it would be really nice with a potato base, but Shiloh didn't have any potatoes. But he had figured out how to grow a little bit of beans, and so he put those in there, and he even he had been drying bananas, and so he threw those in there too for some crunch. You throw them in last minute just to give it that nice crunch. So there he had it, a banana stew, and of course it had a coconut water base. Why, what else would you cook with? So they ate, and they ate in coconut shells that Asher Robin had hollowed out and saved for cooking. What you do is you don't put them directly over the fire, but you get rocks to be hot, move the rocks over onto the sand and place the coconut there. That way the coconut doesn't burn, but it gets warmed, and you can cook your food that way. Well, Shiloh was pretty impressed to see Asher Robin's little cooking setup on the beach there, and then they traveled back to where Asher Robin's cabin was. And I guess at this point I should tell you what was in there. Nothing fancy, but everything you would think that a little God's pirate boy would have. He had a compass which had also washed up. It didn't work very well, but it was there. He had, of course, a desk that he had made out of a coconut tree, and a little bed, a little hammock lion that he had made out of banana leaves and some string. And, of course, on that desk was his great big Bible and the box wrapped in pitch he had tucked underneath his hammock. Well, he had stored some things in there, just some dried foods and whatnot. If he had ever set sail, he could pack it up and use it as a pack. And he would tomorrow. The thought of leaving his island, Asher's thought of leaving the island was a little frightful to him, because it was all he knew after 1 year, but he had become ready just that soon, and he thought that God had maybe sent him Shiloh so that he could finally get the kick to go and do what he was supposed to do. And what better to get a boy who had been attacked by pirates, maybe meet his parents, and who knows, maybe he could set sail fishing with them next time they go out. And that's what he did. But we'll get to that in the next chapter. The Adventures of Asher Robin, God's Pirate, Book 1, Dawn of the Greatest Treasure Hunt. Chapter 3, Back at Sea. Asher woke up that morning feeling just as excited to go as he had the night before. Shiloh woke up excited as well. He wanted to see his parents, to let them know that he was alive, safe. So, first thing in the morning, after a wonderful breakfast of bananas, they set to work in creating more pitch to seal their boat. And so there was a few other repairs that had doing. It wasn't necessarily made for big waves anymore, and so they made sure to add another brace halfway through and across, and they wrapped the paddles with banana leaves to make sure that it was strong and that it would hold water well as it pushed. And sure enough, the pitch had dried that evening, and that afternoon, and they hopped in and set sail. Asher looked back, looked at his island. He loved that island. He had spent so much time there, and he sure would come back. He had been sure to show Shiloh some really cool things about the island, like the pool in the middle that collected fresh water from rain, or the when he could drink from it, and the fountain that he could drink from as well, and showed him all the coconut trees and the hidden cave at the back, which he had been sure to explore and make sure there was nothing living in there, which there wasn't, except for a few crabs. And he had shown him the starfish that clung to the base of the cliffs, and how you could even jump off the cliffs if you were brave enough, but that was where a tiger shark liked to go around, and so he usually didn't swim there. Anyways, it was a wonderful island, and Asher would miss it, but he would be back. Shiloh thought maybe he would come back with him too someday, depending on how far away his home was. So they sailed. They had packed enough coconuts to keep them hydrated for a whole week. They had packed Asher Robin's sea treasure chest, which filled with dry fruit, and of course, Asher had put his Bible in there to keep it safe too. And
So his stuff? No, not his little cabin.
actually, Asher had wondered if he was to go and evangelize to all the people of the pirates, how would he care? There's definitely times where he would gonna have to abandon everything and jump into the water, and he was a little scared to bring his Bible with him, so he decided to actually leave it behind, and so he left it safely hidden in his cabin, wrapped it in special wrapping so that moisture wouldn't get in, and he could come back for one day. But he had been sure over the last year to copy for himself certain scriptures that he knew were going to be encouraging. There was so much about the Bible that he didn't understand, and so he had read most of it, but there was still so much. Every time he read it, something new stuck out. He wrote down a few verses from the book of John, the book of Romans, and a few other places that he could reference.
The book of Acts?
The book of Acts, for sure. A few other places that he could reference. You might be wondering what he wrote it with. Well, he made for himself a little pencil out of charcoal and clay. And he was a very crafty little boy, but he had a year to himself to think of these things and get these things done. Anyways, he set sail with the little boy Shiloh. Shiloh was about 6 years old, so he was a little boy compared to Asher, who was 11. But they went to sea, and it was... At first, the sea was very calm, and then the waves picked up in the evening, and then they settled down, and they were able... One person, Shiloh, fell asleep, and Asher Robin kept on rowing. When the sun rose, they noticed that they had veered slightly, and so they turned a bit, and then they just kept going, kept paddling and paddling until they could finally see, after 2 days of paddling towards the setting sun and paddling away from the rising sun, they could finally see another island. Well, this was actually really exciting for Asher because it was the first other land he had seen in his whole year there. And it was very exciting for Shiloh because he recognized it. It was his island. It was a very, very, very large island. One of the ones that were close to the mainland. Only a few days travel. There's a collection of islands that started, and lots of people lived there. There's villages and little towns, and it was actually a great place to live if it weren't for the pirates that came by regularly. So the little boy Shiloh was excited when he saw that it was his mountain range, or at least it was his island, which had tall mountains in the middle. "That's it," he said to Asher. Asher Robin grinned. He was excited to finally get there, finally do what he was supposed to do. Well, they pulled up to a little village. They docked Asher's boat, and they hopped out. Their legs were a little tense from sitting so long and being cramped in that little boat, but they stretched them out, and Shiloh began to run. "Follow me," he said to Asher Robin. Asher ran after him, and the two jogged together, following Shiloh's lead until they came upon a little house that was by the shore. It was a wooden hut made of bamboo with a beautiful leafy roof. And there sat a woman, a wonderful-looking woman, who cried, "Shiloh!" She stood and ran, and Shiloh called, "Mama!" And they hugged and embraced, and she kissed him forever. It seemed forever. Oh, this did Asher Robin's heart so good. He knew he had done the right thing by bringing this boy back. But it also stirred with him something, not jealousy, but a sorrow, because he didn't remember being held by his mother that way. He wished he could. Well, as if understanding his thoughts, she ran toward him too and hugged him. Shiloh had explained briefly to her that this was a boy from another island who had rescued him and brought him here in his ship, in his little boat. And she was overjoyed. She invited Asher Robin to come in to stay with them for night and to eat as much food as she could feed him. And he was delighted because he got to eat fish that he had never eaten before. These were fisher folk, and they had just done a fine catch in the morning. Sometimes they'd go out for long times, or sometimes they'd go out just for a day to get what they needed. Well, and they also had some octopus, which Asher was excited to try too. He ate the tentacles, and it was actually very well prepared. Fried octopus and oil, and then they had plantain patties as well, and some rice. This did him so good to taste these things and eat these things. Oh, and Shiloh and his mama talked and talked and talked. Just wait until your papa gets home, she said. Finally, when the sun was setting, he came in to eat supper with them. And he was so excited to see his little boy. You see, Shiloh's parents had almost wondered if he had died, but they were very excited to see that he was alive. Praise God, she said. Asher Robin said, yes, it was him that drew me to do this, and I had just in my mind decided that I was going to be God's pirate. And they looked at him and said, God's pirate? What is that? I said, well, I was actually raised on a pirate ship, said Asher Robin. My whole life I've been a pirate, but now that I read the Bible, I know that God doesn't like pirates, but I could be his pirate, and I could save the other pirates. Well, this made Shiloh's papa a little angry because he didn't think pirates were worth saving. He didn't like them at all. Well, everybody's worth saving, for God so loved the world. Everyone, right? Shiloh's mama seemed to agree after some time. Shiloh's papa just went quiet. Shiloh just smiled. He was so excited to be home, to be back in his house, eating his food. It was pretty settled that Asher Robin would live with them as long as he needed, and they even actually decided that they would invite him out to the next fishing trip. They were going on a small one soon, but then in a month they would go on a big one, deep sea. Well, that was the last one where they had been attacked by pirates, but this time they were planning on going to a different place where they hadn't heard of any pirate activity. They hoped they could bring in a lot of fish to catch. Now, Shiloh's mama would typically stay behind, but she determined that she would go with them. And so the family set out with another hired hand. They set out with great nets and fishing rods, and they went out to that portion of the sea. And it is here that I must tell you that, of course, they were found by pirates. Not on the first night, not on the second, but on the third. They could see it coming around. Well, they were on the lookout, and so they drew in their nets and started away. Oh, Asher's heart leapt within him. That was them, he said. Those were the people that he felt called to be a missionary to. He was called to be God's pirate, and that meant he had to do piratey things. And that meant he had to be with pirates. Well, he loved Shiloh, he really did, and he loved his parents, but he knew that he must go. And so he told them, and they thought that was ridiculous. He wouldn't stop for that, but he said that he would swim. So he told Shiloh's papa that he could have, if he could just keep his boat there just in case he needed to get back to his island, he would come here again. Shiloh hugged Asher Robin goodbye. It wouldn't be goodbye forever, or for very long, for they would see each other soon, very soon. Asher Robin then jumped into the ocean. He swam and swam and swam, and finally he got there. And this is where we'll have the portion of the chapter where he is found by the pirates. They haul him up into their boat. The captain says, "Why did you swim here from that fishing vessel?" And the pirate said, he said, well, what would he would swim. Oh, you know what? No, actually, instead of him swimming, let's not do that. Let's say he and Shiloh, they quickly go back to their village to warn the other people that they did see a pirate ship. So everybody brings in their boats, and they turn out the fires in the village, and they wait. And Shiloh wonders. He said he's never been on the other side of a raid before, just waiting for it to happen. All the people didn't have very many weapons. They didn't have very many defenses at all. He was wondering, there must be something they could do. He just had to sit there and wait and hide and hope the pirates didn't come to your house, bury your gold and hide your treasure. This seems so silly, but all the more reason why Asher knew he needed to save these pirates. He needed to tell these pirates about Jesus so that they could stop doing what they're doing and stop hurting people. While the pirates came, they could hear cannon fire, just one, as a warning that they were there and that they had this power of gunpowder behind them. And then, rowing in small boats, a band of pirates came, 2 boats filled with some gruffy-looking men. Oh, they stepped onto the land, and it was nighttime. They had their own torches so they could see. Oh, you could hear them kicking over things and rustling around and taking crates of food and barrels of drink, and all sorts of things were going on. But the Asher Robin was left or Shiloh's hut went unnoticed. Asher Robin then decided, well, this was it. This is chance. If he could sneak onto the pirate ship, maybe he could start telling those pirates, changing those pirates. So he bid Shiloh and his family goodbye.
How will he get help?
Well, he's just by himself right now. As he gets older, I guess he gets more help. But anyways, so Asher Robin, he left Shiloh's hut, and he wandered, almost done the chapter. He wandered toward one of the little boats, and he sat there. And then he was thinking, oh, this is kind of foolish. When they get back, what are they going to do? And there was already some crates on board, and so he decided just to hide behind it. It was night, and he was small, and maybe he wouldn't be seen. Well, he was right. After about an hour, the boat was all loaded up with stinky, smelly, dirty pirates, and they didn't notice him. They threw a net over top of the stuff they had gotten, barrels and boxes and all sorts of things that they had stolen from this wonderful little fishing village. And then they set sail. And then they started to row back to their main ship. And Asher Robin was huddled against the floor, huddled against the edge of the ship, with a barrel next to him and a box next to him and a fishing net over him and a net over him, and they didn't even notice. And that is how Asher Robin snuck aboard his first pirate ship. And that was how Asher Robin snuck aboard this pirate ship. And soon, that pirate ship would become his own. The Adventures of Asher Robin, God's Pirate, Book 1, Dawn of the Greatest Treasure Hunt, Chapter 4, How to Train a Monkey. What I'm about to tell you, most wouldn't believe. In fact, when I first began to tell this story, my own son didn't believe the title of this chapter. But why would I lie to you? Asher Robin did indeed find a monkey. And as to what happens to it, well, let's just continue on with the story. Well, I told you that the pirate ship that Asher Robin was sneaking onto, it would soon be his. Soon is a strange thing to say. Could be in 2 books, could be in 2 chapters. We really don't know. We'll have to keep going. It definitely didn't happen too quickly, though. When they pulled up to that big ship, Asher Robin peeked out his head. It was pretty dark. He couldn't see. But then they smashed against it. They tied it down with ropes. And then a rope ladder was let down, and men started to haul up. Up they went, each with a box, each with a barrel, each with a sword, each with something, a chicken, a pig. They went up. And Asher Robin knew he was getting to his turn real quick. So just when some dirty old pirate made a noise, he quickly rolled off the edge of the boat, slipped into the cold, cold ocean water. The waves were pretty mighty that time, and he was getting smashed up against that little skiff, but he held on tightly. At last, the final box was lifted up, and then ropes were hoisting up the skiff. He quickly held on to the bottom of it. It was slippery, but he hung on to the edge where he couldn't see. The edge that was facing the ocean. That made the thing rock a bit, but as it was going up, in the darkness, nobody noticed that he hung on there. Well, somebody would have noticed eventually, for sure. He wasn't really thinking that far ahead. He was needing to get on, hide, and then, well, find a way to start talking to people. So up he went, hanging on to that boat. It was slippery, it was wet. Asher Robin was quite tired, but he was determined. So he held on tightly. Well, eventually...
Was this his first pirate ship
I don't know.
that he slipped aboard?
Well, he grew up on a pirate ship, so it's not the first one. Anyways, so then the skiff got raised up to the top. And then the men pulled the ropes to bring it closer to the deck where they could tie it down and keep it safe. And there was Asher Robin hanging there. They didn't notice his fingers. They didn't even notice him. He was clinging on tightly. When they pulled it close, he felt his ankles touch his knees touch the railing of the ship, and then he let go. He hung on to the railing. Now, his face was just below where he could see. His feet were hanging over the edge. And these pirates were too busy with the boat. They didn't see little Asher Robin hanging there. Well, he hung on even tighter, and then eventually the pirates turned their eyes. He could slip on and sneak forward a little bit and hide behind a big barrel and some rope. Well, that was pretty exciting for Asher Robin. He hadn't ever snuck onto a pirate ship before. Sure, he had gone on many times, but as a guest, as a member of the crew, well, he knew what pirates were like, and he knew that if he was found, it wouldn't go over too well for him. So he figured, instead of being found, he better introduce himself. But not to these pirates. No, he better introduce himself to the captain. He knew not all captains were nice, but the Captain Griffin, who raised him as a pirate boy, Captain Griffin was nice enough. He wondered if the man in charge of this boat would be just like that. So he waited behind that barrel, waiting and watching.
Is he right?
Well, he wasn't too sure how to start up conversations with these pirates. So the first night he waited. Well, what I didn't tell you was that it was a dark night. It was cold and it was wet. But Asher was really used to those kind of conditions. He had grown up on a pirate ship, after all. Sure, he had a nice cozy quarters after a few years and a comfortable pillow and blanket, but he was a pirate and he was used to roughing it. Well, sitting behind those barrels was sure roughing it. I'm not so sure he slept as much as he just sat there and prayed, trying to talk to God and remember psalms that he had read. Well, he straightened out the pages of the Bible that he had, made sure they weren't wet anymore, and dried them off. The charcoal pencil had still held up, and he was able to read a few things. He figured most of his evangelizing would be done from memory, just like Paul, standing up there, reasoning with the scriptures. Well, he wasn't anything like Paul, I guess, except for that he was excited. Why would he doubt himself? He had God on his side, right? He was God's pirate. Okay, now he was ready to go. But it was dark, and it was quiet, and all the pirates seemed to be really slopping around lazy-like on the night shift. Well, there was voices here and there, and creaks and steps, and he knew he had to introduce himself to the captain. And then something very strange happened. He began to feel hungry, which wasn't too big of a problem. He had gone days without eating before. But the strangest thing was, out of the darkness, he didn't hear a single thing except for he felt a tiny little hand come upon his shoulder, as if it was taking hold of him, grabbing him. It was very gentle, but it was very frightening to him. It was a tiny hand, like a baby. He had never felt anything like it. He turned around quickly. He didn't see much, but he felt something, a furry thing. It was a baby. No, not a baby. It was something else. Long arms and long legs and a short, furry little head and a tiny little body. What was this thing? It was a monkey. That's right. This thing wrapped its arms around Asher and held him tight as if it was trying to choke him or something. Asher said, "Hey, quit it." He was trying to struggle with this monkey, and finally he pulled it off himself and looked at it. It wasn't just any old monkey. It was a small little howler monkey. You know, the kind of monkeys that stay on top of the trees and go, "Ah, ah, ah," when there's trouble around. Well, that was this kind of monkey. Well, Asher Robin recognized a bracelet around his wrist. This was a pirate monkey. Oh boy, why wasn't this thing hollering and hoopering and telling all the pirates that there was some enemy aboard? Well, just then, Asher laughed to himself. He wasn't an enemy. He was a friend, after all. He was a pirate. Maybe the monkey recognized him and just knew him to be a friend. So, Asher started to talk to him. "Hey there, little guy," he said. Of course, the monkey didn't talk back. Monkeys don't speak. But the monkey understood him all right. The monkey put out his hand, and Asher shook it as if greeting. "My name's Asher Robin. I'm God's pirate." The monkey just went, "Ooh, ah," in a very small, quiet little voice. It didn't screech at all, and Asher was so thankful. In fact, he said, "Thanks for not screaming and alerting the pirates. They don't exactly know I'm here yet. I still need to meet the captain." And then the monkey stood on his back legs and he saluted as if he knew who the captain was. Well, this was a good start, Asher said. And then he asked the monkey if he could have some food. Well, with that, the monkey climbed up some ropes and disappeared for a little while. About 20 minutes later, the monkey came back with some bread and cheese and a few green grapes. It was quite the spoiler for Asher. He hadn't eaten anything like that in a while, and he was excited to eat it. Good old pirate food, the kind of thing that you took from villages. Oh, he just realized he was eating stolen food. Well, he blessed it, prayed for it, thanked the Lord for it, and prayed that for a blessing upon the family from whomever this bread was taken from. Surely the cheese wasn't made by pirates, and surely these grapes were grown by pirates. They were pillaged from a village, but such is the way of pirating. Asher Robin had to get over it, so he ate, filled his tummy. The monkey ate too. The monkey had some cheese and some grapes, and it wasn't a big fan of the bread because it was sour bread, but Asher really liked sour bread. He was perfectly fine with that. The chapter is called How to Tame a Monkey, and I guess I should tell you what Asher did next. He spoke to the monkey. He read the Bible to the monkey. He tried to play with the monkey, all the while whispering, and the monkey really took to him that night. He stayed behind the barrel until the sun was beginning to rise. Well, that's when he heard the steps of the captain coming up to the bow, looking out over the sea with his looking glass, probably scouting out another island or the mainland or something somewhere, another pirate mission, another village to pillage. Well, this was his chance. Asher stood up. He stepped forward. The monkey clung to his shoulder, and then the monkey jumped onto the railing of the ship, ran up toward the captain, jumped onto the captain, and that's when he howled, and that's when he screeched, and that's when he gave away Asher Robin's position. Asher Robin wondered if the monkey had felt guilty for not alerting the captain of his presence before. Well, either way, he was known now. The captain twirled, as if knowing what the monkey was saying, and looked straight at the little Asher Robin right in the face. "Hi there. My name's Asher Robin. I'm God's pirate," he said loudly. The captain laughed, and he walked right up to him very quickly and took hold of his shoulder. "What'd you say?" "My name's Asher Robin. I'm God's pirate. How'd you get on board this ship?" the captain asked. "Well, I came with your men back from the village. I was on the fishing island there, you see, and I wanted to come and join your crew. I'm a pirate, after all." The captain laughed. "A pirate boy, I guess. Whose son are you? Which captain is missing you, and how'd you get here?" "Well, if you must know, Captain Griffin, but he's not my father or by any stretch, but he did raise me. I came from his vessel, and, well, we had a disagreement, so we parted ways, and I guess you could say I've been out of work for a while." Asher chuckled to himself. He sounded like a pirate again. "Captain Griffin, can't say I know him," said the captain. "But my name's Sparks. You can call me Sparks. Captain Sparks, if you wish." "All right, Captain Sparks. Well, I'm good at the deck, and I've done many jobs before. I can climb the mast, and I can swab the deck, and I can lower the skiffs. I can even row the skiffs if you need." "Well, I ain't looking for help, boy, and I ought to make you walk the plank for coming aboard unwelcome. You know this. This is a pirate way. You don't come onto another man's ship without your welcome and without your hire." "Well, yes, sir, I understand. You just nothing," said the captain. "You best be going. I'm not going to throw you into the sea. We're going to the mainland, and I will drop you there. Don't ever come back, you say?" "Okay, well, I do wish to tell you something then," Asher said. Well, he realized right then and there that this captain wasn't going to have him a part of his crew, and if the captain wasn't going to have him a part of the crew, then he certainly wasn't going to hear the message of the gospel. But that's why he was there. Asher became so scared all of a sudden of saying the truth. But he knew he had to. He had come all this way to do exactly what he was about to do. He didn't exactly say all that he wished to say or read all the verses he wished to read, but he said something like this: God saved me, and he sent me the Bible, and it came by the sea, and I read it, and it's wonderful. It'll change your life, I say. It changed my life, I say. Pirating that's not good. It's not according to what God wants. And I don't mean the law. I mean just the life of Jesus. He was a good man. He told to love each other and to not steal and to honor father and mother and everything against a pirate. But it doesn't mean we cannot be pirates. It doesn't mean we cannot sail the seas. We can do good. We can do honest work. It is important to do honest work. It really is. And you ought to love God back. He loves you. I tell you, he sent his son to die for you, for your sins. You see, we're all sinners. We all fall short of God's glory, and everybody dies. Oh, well, Jesus is the only way to heaven. So if this life is anything, then the life after is even more. And so you ought to pay attention to where you're going. And you ought to come to Jesus and love him back and learn about him, just as I have. Well, he stammered and he stuttered and he said something just like that. It was quite a beautiful message, if you ask me. Sure, it was a little broken up, and sure, it was a little all over the place, but it was the truth after all. And hearing the truth for the first time is quite a wonderful thing. Well, I'm sorry to say that this captain's heart was pretty hard. So he didn't really hear it. At least he heard the words, but it didn't touch his soul like it had touched Asher's. So the captain just laughed. God's pirate, I see, hey? More like a priest on the waters. Well, priesty boy, you better get back. And don't talk about this again. And don't talk to my men. And with that, the captain ordered a crew member to bring him down to the stocks and put him into the prison. He stayed there for a little while. It was cold and dark, and there was tons of rats about. But you'll never guess who came to him that night. It was the monkey, the howler monkey. Asher had overheard his word. His name was Howard the Howler. He thought that was kind of funny. Hey there, Howie, Asher said. The monkey liked it. Asher scratched his belly, and the monkey kept bringing Asher food. You see, the pirates were only feeding him spoiled food, bags of rice with maggots and that kind of thing, things you wouldn't want to eat. Even if you were super hungry, you wouldn't want to eat that. But the monkey kept him stocked with fresh food, and it was a few days before they landed and docked. And with that, Asher saw the light for the first time. Well, he stepped out, his Bible verses in his vest pocket still intact, hadn't read them for the darkness in the dungeon was quite dark, and the stench was quite stenchy. He felt like Jonah in the belly of the whale for a little while, but he called out to God, and he spent time with that little monkey. Well, this is the best part of this chapter, I would say. He stepped off the boat. The captain and his men walked into town as if they were normal, which was quite surprising for Asher, but he had done that before. It seems like they weren't there to pillage anything, but just there to be there, or maybe they were on business, or Asher wasn't really sure, and he wasn't really allowed to ask. They shuffled him along, and they unbound his hands. You see, they had tied his hands behind his back with rope, and they let him go. Get lost, little boy, said Captain Sparks. Well, and with that, get lost, little priest, said Captain Sparks. With that, Asher Robbins started to walk. He felt a little sad. He had come all that way just to tell one person about the gospel and for him to not listen. But I will tell you, that trip was not in vain. You see, any time someone hears the truth, even if they reject it, that is still some time that they heard the truth. And eventually, God will come to them again and again and again, and they hear the truth again and again. And sure, they may never accept it, but it will build upon, the messages will build upon each other until they've heard the full gospel. I tell you, many men and women have come to faith simply remembering what a little child had once said to them. So I encourage you to do what Asher did sometime. Tell someone something about Christ. It's worth it. But the best part of the chapter, right, I got a little distracted there. The best part of the chapter was as Asher was walking away, Howie jumped from the captain's shoulders and ran to Asher and jumped onto his. Howard the Howler, yelled Captain Sparks. Where you be going? Come back here, you monkey. Well, it was almost as if Howie yelled out, No! In a screeching monkey voice, and he clung to Asher. Asher knew right away that this monkey wanted to go with him. He figured if he ran away right now, it would almost be like he stole the monkey. But he didn't really steal the monkey. The monkey was just running away, and Asher was helping him run away. After all, I'm sure Captain Sparks was a very interesting captain to have. Well, if Asher was a pirate, maybe Howie would be his first crew member. Okay, well, then I guess I'll run, thought Asher. And so he ran. His little legs ran as fast as he could, and that monkey kept howling and hanging on to him as tight as they could. And the captain's men ran after him, but Asher was very small. He snuck underneath a dock into the water, just about waist high, waded to the other side. The men jumped onto the beach where he went. He climbed back onto the dock, ran to the end of it, jumped onto a little boat. It was tied, so he jumped back into the water, and he swam. The monkey was getting all kinds of wet. The crew members jumped in the water too. This time, Asher was sure his Bible verses was getting wet, but he would just have to write them down again. Got back to shore. This is a crazy chase, I tell you. Another pirate had gone along the beach, but Asher got there first. He ran along the pebbles and up to some steps. There was a big blacksmith near the edge of the beach, and he ran right into them. The shop was all smoky and dusty, and the old man, grim, said, "Hey, what you doing here?" And Asher grabbed a hot iron and put it into a water cup to make even more steam. And that made the blacksmith really angry. But Asher said, "I'm so sorry, I gotta run." And then the pirate stumbled into the blacksmith, and the blacksmith banged himself down, and the pirates tumbled over and fell into a heap. Well, that allowed Asher to run into a market where Howie clung to him still, and he found a little pile of barrels. He snuck behind it and stayed there, breathing heavily, holding Howie tight. Well, you could hear rustling, you could hear chattering, you could hear cheering, but after 30 minutes, nothing was said, and no one was coming, and life was going on, and he figured, the pirates are surely still here. I just need to sneak out, sneak up and hide. So he did. He walked out, went to a building that had a little ladder leading to the top of the roof, climbed up there, and sat there with Howie. Well, he could sure see the captain's ship all right. He could see Sparks right at the walkway, yelling and screaming and waving things, and crew members looking. I guess Howie was a very beloved monkey, but Howie had ran away. Howie had chosen Asher Robin. Asher Robin didn't mind it at all. And so, with that, the sun set. Captain Sparks' ship sailed away. So this wasn't the chapter where Asher took control of that ship, no. But this was the chapter where Asher Robin tamed a monkey. The Adventures of Asher Robin, God's Pirate. Book 1, Chapter 5. A Little Whaling Boy. From the mainland, Asher Robin hopped on a fishing vessel, a whaling vessel, became part of their crew. He was going to earn money at the end of it. He honestly wasn't sure if he was going to reach the end of it, because he was really just wanting to get out to sea and get out to where pirates were. He started to hear stories about pirate coverts. That means places, pirate lairs, where they would come and store all their treasure, and where they would go and other pirate ships would come and they would meet, and certain bargains would be struck and deals would be made about where to go to next, and he wanted to go there. It sounded like a den of thieves. It sounded like a den of lions, somewhere terrible, and that's where he wanted to go, because he had a light. Sure, it hadn't gone over well with Captain Sparks. Nothing really happened, but he knew the message was good. Even if he said something wrong or something strange, it was the message that had the power, not him. It was Jesus, and so he wanted to keep going and keep doing this. And I tell you, that was the Spirit of God working in him, because most of us would have given up after failing the first time, or at least seeing no results as failure, but not for Asher Robin. He kept wanting to go. But first of all, he was on top of that roof with the little howler monkey, Howie, that he had just made. And as it was becoming nighttime, he could see that the pirates were leaving. Their ship was sailing away along with Captain Sparks. That was a huge relief to him. He couldn't help but sing. I've told you before how much he loved to sing, and you've heard tons of his silly songs. Well, this one he sung was a very grateful song, a very slow song. In fact, It was to the tune of Vivaldi's Spring, Four Seasons. You see, when he was a little boy, a baby, his mother would hum to him, and he would listen to that as a little child, and the tune stayed in his heart. He didn't know what it was from, so he put words to it, and he said, "Under these little stars, I lie here so still. I see the night sky, and it makes me feel tired. I want to go home, but no home do I know. But I'll set sail again, and I'll find my friend, and I'll tell them about what happened." And with that, he just fell asleep. He wasn't particularly impressed with that song. He was just singing from his heart. But then he fell asleep. And Howie, the howler monkey, decided to get up and go. He didn't leave him, don't worry. He just knew that breakfast was going to be needed. You see, the monkey was very resourceful. He'd always found stuff, interesting stuff for Captain Sparks. And maybe he'd go places Captain Sparks couldn't go and take things for him. Wow. To tame a monkey is a long process, and so perhaps Howie, when he came back in the morning with food, bread, and bananas, perhaps he stole them. It's hard to say. Asher Robin felt a little uncomfortable, so he didn't know. But he ate it, and he told Howie, "Listen, you can't take stuff. We will earn money to buy these things, or we'll make these things. Oh, back on my home island, you should have seen. God gave food freely. It came, and things would wash up on shore. Oh, one time, something washed up on shore, and there was old carrots in there, but I was able to cut them and salvage them and actually grow carrots myself in dirt." And you're thinking, how could I grow carrots on dirt? Well, it wasn't just a sandy island. There was patches of dirt. And so Asher went on and on and on that morning while they ate their bread and bananas, telling the little Howie, the howler monkey, about his island. Well, if Howie really understood him, he would really want to go to that island. And I really wonder if he did, because Howie, of course, eventually got to that island and made it his home and was so happy. I'm getting way too ahead of myself here. First of all, Asher Robin was on that rooftop, climbed down the ladder, and he asked around. Well, turns out he was a pretty small guy compared to all the other adults. There was tons of people, very large people. Well, they might be 5 feet tall for all he knew. So, he found some kids, and he asked about pirates. Well, he had forgotten all of his manners, that's for sure. He hadn't brushed his teeth for quite some time, and did he look savage. His hair was wavy, long and brown with golden streaks from the sun. He was dirty, sunburnt, but he didn't mind. He was happy. He had joy in his heart for what he knew about the Lord and what he had set out to do, to become God's pirate. "You look like a pirate," said one boy with red hair. "Oh, that's because I am," said Asher Robin. I'm God's pirate." Well, the kids just laughed. "God's pirate? God doesn't have pirates. God has priests. What are you talking about?" And then he told them about the book that he had found and the island that he was on, and how he had decided that he wanted to go back to the pirates that had raised him and tell them about Jesus. Well, the kids laughed all the more. Tell them about Jesus? That's a Sunday thing, and pirates don't keep Sundays, that's for sure. Asher Robin wasn't too sure what to make of these comments. Finally, he said, "Well, if I can't get to the pirates, if I can't be where the pirates are going, then I best just go find the pirates." So he went to the docks, and he found a big ship, a whaling vessel. You see, they hunted for whales. They would take the oil out of the whales, and they usually wouldn't have the meat of the whales, but just take the blubber and the oil to light lamps and all kinds of things. Well, he was looking for a job, and boy, did they ever have a job. The whale boy, he would have to climb inside a whale after they had hunted it, and, scoop out all the oil. It was a gross-sounding job, but Asher Robin figured it would get him out into the
water. So, just like that, with a very poor salary, he set out with the crew. He was a young boy, very young, and, well, they liked his size because he could fit into those whales pretty nicely, even if they caught a baby one. And so they set off one morning. It was a fair weather day. The sea was calm, and it was nice to be back at sea on the big ship, and sailing down across the sea they went. And finally they got to a place where the fishing was good. And they set out on these little boats looking to fish for whales. And they threw down the skiffs and the lines, and boom, you could spear one. A big man with strong muscles and long blonde hair speared it. Oh, he got one. It went down and down and down and down, and the spool was turning, and finally it slowed, and they could pull it back to the boat where they reeled it up. This came the smelly part. I don't want to tell you too much about it because it's really smelly and stinky to think about, but they hollowed the thing out, and in climbed Asher Robin to get out the oil. Did he stink for days and days and days afterward, and then, just when he was starting to forget the smell, they would catch another, and he would do it again. But he did not like this work at all, but he was at sea. And then, just as he had hoped, a pirate ship dawned on the horizon.
Well, to tell you the truth, when he got on that fishing vessel, Howie wasn't really expected to come along. He sure did, though. Climbed up the mast and stayed on the top. Nobody could see him. But I was sure glad, Asher Robin was sure glad he did sneak on board, because when he saw a pirate ship in the distance, he howled. Well, I tell you, the whaling men, they did not expect to hear some wailing, howling monkey up in their mast, and so they were a little frightened at first. But when they noticed what it was, they recognized it, and they looked where it was looking, and they could see, behold, just on the horizon, showing up, just before the rising sun, just before the setting sun, on the other side of the setting sun, shining in the orange light, they could see the pirate ship coming. Well, the first mate pulled out his looking glass. He looked through it, and sure enough, he could see the pirate flag. No, it wasn't necessarily the skull with the bones.
No, this one was plain white and tattered, and had simply a ring of black bones in its center.
And the whalers knew what to do. They turned, they pulled up their anchor, and they went. You see, they had men on the water who were out whaling, and they figured, you got to catch up. And they did, don't worry. All the men got back on board safely. But they were quick, and they were efficient. And if they couldn't get their skiff up on time, they would have left it. But they were able to attach it. Not lift it up, but it just sat at the bottom. And that's important. That will come into play in a little bit here. Anyways, the boat kept going, but the pirate ship, as if riding with the wind, was fast. And I tell you, after one night sailing, just at the pitch black of night, around 3 a.m., that pirate ship was getting close. It was too dark to see and too dark to shoot. You see, the whaling vessel had put out all lights and all lanterns and all fires, and they were just drifting silently, hoping not to be seen. But it was a clear day, and the moon was shining, and when you got close enough, you could see a ship. And sure enough, they saw that pirate ship coming, and they heard the yelling and the laughing of pirates, and then all of a sudden, cannon fire. Well, the whaling vessel took a hit. It wasn't a bad hit, but it was a hit nonetheless, and it scraped along the bow. Water came in a little bit, not too much, don't worry, just waves coming in. Oh, man, the whalers, they started to worry. And Asher Robin remembered something. It wasn't a pirate story from the Bible, but it sure reminded of him. Paul was shipwrecked. He was going up against a storm, and the men were freaking out. There was like 200 of them or something like that. The story was so vague in his mind, but he remembered of loving it. And what did Paul do? He received a vision from the angel, and he wasn't to worry. Oh, and what about Jonah when the storm was going? Man, the other men prayed to their gods, but Jonah, that's it. He needed to pray, not to anybody, but just to God himself. And so he got down on his knees and he started to pray. And he told all the other men, you need to pray. Fall on your knees and you need to pray. Well, I tell you, even if there wasn't a religious man on that boat, they would fall to their knees because they knew what was coming at them. They knew it. And they prayed, 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 and guess what happened?
What?
The cannon fire stopped, and the pirate ship just kept on sailing by. You see, in that moment, through their prayers, it was answered, and the captain that was piloting that ship, who was a particularly bad captain, not just a stinky, dirty, mean one, but a truly evil captain. His name was Captain Black Bones. But in that moment, God had covered his eyes with a darkness so that in the night he could no longer see. And he thought to himself, I am not coming up against a ship that takes away my vision. He had both of his eyes left, no eye patch, but now he couldn't see out of either eye. Sure, his vision came back to him the next morning, but the whaling vessel was long gone. And you may be thinking, I thought this was a tale of stories and pirates. Well, guess what? A story about pirates and God's pirate, you can be sure, is going to have miracles when miracles are needed, and when faith is strong enough, and if God wills it. And that's what happened. A straight miracle. And Asher Robin knew it. And Asher Robin was able to tell the men that their prayer was answered. And I tell you, after that sailing day, there wasn't left a man who did not believe in the God of Asher Robin, in the God that Asher Robin knew. And Asher Robin said, you will read about him in the Bible. And they knew that when they got back to shore, they would go home, they would tell their wives what happened, how God saved their life. Oh, it was exciting. Asher Robin realized that he had done a work for the Lord, but it wasn't the people that he thought it was to. He thought it was supposed to be pirates, but God used pirates and a God's pirate to reach these whalers, these stinky whalers. Oh, it was so beautiful. But then Asher had a thought. He was belonging on the seas. Whether it was with these whalers, whether it was with the pirates, he was out here. Well, they were going to turn east and head back to the mainland. But just up ahead, Asher Robin could see a series of islands. And that was the way that the pirates were headed. So he told the captain of the whaling vessel, Captain, may I take a skiff and set out? Well, the captain said, you know what? The skiff down below, it's battered. It won't make it very far, but you will make it to those islands. And so the captain let Asher Robin off. He gave him a gold coin, which would have been about half payment for the journey, because he had only completed half of it. Asher Robin was grateful. He gave him a satchel, which is kind of like a bag full of food, really good food. It was old, sure, twice-baked cakes and whatnot, some dried grapes, raisins, if you will, not sweetened or anything. But it was food still. Asher Robin was thankful. And so he and Howie came down into the skiff and set off. While the captain of the whaling vessel was a little sad that he wasn't keeping his howler monkey, that thing was real useful, but he would look into getting one when he got back in shore. Was that the last time Asher saw that whaling captain? I certainly don't think so. I think he would see him again, but perhaps we'll find out in a later story. For now, Asher Robin set sail toward the sunset, away from the sunrise. You see, it was early morning. He could see those islands, and he was going toward those islands. He was excited. And he was filled with a passion and joy because of what had happened that night. And he, even if he was going to go up against Black Bones himself, he was excited because he knew, he had seen, and he had known fully that God was with him.
The Adventures of Asher Robin. Book 1. Dawn of the Greatest Treasure Hunt.
Chapter 6.
Old Seabones Tales. Asher Robin was rowing toward a little
stone island. You could see in the distance some other islands. He was sure, because he had saw Blackbone's ship go that way, that this is where pirates were. Well, at any rate, it was better than going back to the mainland. Sure, he had incredible experiences, seeing God's power on the whaling vessel, protecting them from black bones. But Asher's mission was to preach to pirates. And so to pirates he would go. Well, he rowed, and he began to sing that similar song that he had sung with Shiloh. I row, I row, I row this way. I go, I go, I go this way. Yo row, yo row, yo row this way. Yo go, yo go, yo go this way to the island, the island, the island, to find pirates, some pirates, some pirates. I row, I row, I row to the island. I row, I row, I row to the island. I go, I go, I go to the island. And so on and on and on, Asher sung until he got to the island. Oh, the howler monkey Howie loved that song as well, and he began to sing his own little bits, little coos and caws. And when they got closer to the island, suddenly the howler monkey stood straight up at the front of the ship and began to howl. He howled and he howled. Ooh-ah, ooh-ah, ooh-ah. Asher Robin wasn't too sure what he was howling at until he saw just ahead was the beach on that island. The island was mainly rocks, and what he could see above was very, very interesting. Well, what I'm about to tell you, which sat upon the highest rock that was on that island, is not actually what Howie was howling at. But I'll tell you that in a sec. First, what Asher saw on top of that rock was a massive shark skeleton. It was about the size of a fishing vessel. The rest of its bones were mainly fallen down, but the head was propped up by rocks as if placed there, and it was clearly a shark, the largest shark Asher Robin had ever seen. And he hadn't seen it when it was a shark, for it looked even bigger with all its muscle. This was a fierce shark. Its mouth was propped wide open, and inside, stuck in between the teeth of this great shark, was a boot. Very curious looking boot. Asher had to pull out his looking glass in order to see it. And then he looked down at the beach, and this is what Howie was howling at. An old man sitting on the beach with a little fire. Well, Asher saw this as a good sign. There was someone there. This fella looked like he was in poor shape. His clothes were all tattered. He was very skinny, very old. When Asher rode up, he said, "Ahoy there!" The old man perked up. The old man had clearly seen Asher coming and waited for him. Asher hopped out of the boat, but Howie wouldn't go. He stayed. Actually, Howie hid. He hid underneath in the boat so that the old man wouldn't see him. Asher chuckled. "I'm sure it's fine, but in case, I'll holler and you'll rescue me." The monkey just stayed still. Asher walked up to the man and said, "Hi there. My name is Asher Robin. I am God's pirate." Well, the old man laughed and said, "A pirate, hey? I am a pirate myself, at least I was." "Really? Okay, well, I came here in search of pirates." "Oh, you won't find any pirates here," said the old man. "What did you call yourself there? God's pirate? What is that business?" "Well, you see, sir," said Asher Robin, I'm a pirate, but I'm God's pirate, and so I don't do anything like the thieving and the making men walk the plank and the pillaging. No, I want to go and I want to tell pirates that is not the way to please God,
and that they should change the way they live and love other people and love God. That's the way he wants things. That's the way he wants the world to be, not fighting and stealing and taking and all the selfishness of piracy. Oh, the old man laughed even more. I say, I can't say I've never heard of this before, but I've never heard of something coming from such a young man. What, you mean to say you've heard of other gods' pirates? No, I have not, young man. But I have heard of this God you speak of, and this Bible you speak of. Oh, it's a silly thing to go and tell pirates about God. They will not hear it. Oh, but they might hear it, and they will hear it. They might not accept it, but they will hear it, and well, I think that is a very important thing. After all, I didn't know anything about this until I read for myself the Bible and saw that God's will was not the way I had lived my life. Well, that's all fine and good for you, my lad, but pirates are a different sort. Let me tell you my story. Will you? Sit down. Come. Sit down next to me here. Asher Robin found the conversation very interesting, and so he obliged. He did. He walked up and sat down. Okay, well, I said that I was once a pirate. Well, maybe I won't tell you my name. Maybe I will. It's John, if you must know. Anyways, I was once a pirate. But you see, pirates, they're dirty, and they're mean, and they do things that you wouldn't think of to be good. Oh, I know, sir. I am a pirate. I was raised as a pirate. Well, you didn't say that first. Okay. Tell me, who raised you? Whose son are you? I am nobody's son. Well, I am somebody's son, but the pirate that raised me, his name is Captain Griffin, and he's not my father. I'm not sure what happened to them, but he took me when I was young, or found me when I was young is what he said, but I know pirating ways. I think he took me. That is a sad tale, my boy, a very sad tale. I have heard of your captain before. My captain was a cruel man, a very, very wicked, cruel man. I'm sure you have heard of him. Captain Blackbones. Oh, I've heard of him, Asher Robin said. After all, Captain Griffin used to say black bones, but boot. I never understood what that meant. Yeah, it's funny you should say that. Anyways, said the old man. Said John. Oh, his name is not John. Sorry, his name is Old Seabones. My name is Old Seabones. I totally forgot about that. That's why the chapter's called Old Seabones. Anyways, Old Seabones. You know why they called me Old Seabones? Well, I was a pirate before there were pirates. I'm that old. I have been out on seas for a very long time. But Captain Blackbones was a different sort. A cruel, wicked man. And, well, I guess if you don't align yourself with cruel, wicked men, you are cast off. That's kind of what happened to me. Well, Captain Griffin, he wanted me to force somebody to walk the plank, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't. And I know why now. It was God protecting my heart from doing something so wrong. The old Seabones laughed. You say God, that's fine with you. But I tell you what, I couldn't handle it either. So I came here. Well, my boat was terribly battered on the sea, and I have been here for many, 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 many years. And it is very interesting to see you. Not many have come here. Surely some have, and ships pass by here all the time. Oh, but they don't come. Oh, maybe it's the shark bones up there, I don't know. I have lit fires, I have called for help, and I have swum. Oh, I have swam. But I have stayed here. I cannot leave. You see, it's so deep, and there are sharks in these waters. I am very surprised you made it this far in your little skiff like that. Well, God is with me. That much is for sure. I saw Blackbones coming by just last night even. Well, that is a curious thing that you should say. Oh, to be on that ship again, before it was tainted with his darkness. Oh, that would be a thing. You sound like you know of the light. Do you, old Seabones? Do you know God? I know of God. I don't know that anyone can know him, said the Seabones. I will tell you this, though, Asher Robin, God's pirate. You are wasting your life going out to sea to find pirates. God says it himself in his Bible. Pirates. He cannot save pirates. He cannot love pirates. I don't remember reading that, and I've read it all. Oh, there are many things you would read that you do not remember, son. But I tell you, it is in there, and it is a sad truth. But that is why pirates are on the seas and not on the land where there are churches and all such ministries. No, God doesn't care for pirates. And so your mission, it is a waste. Asher sat there, silent for a while. He was saddened by Seabones' words. Were they true? He was called to be a God's pirate, but did God not love pirates? And he remembered the conversation he had with Shiloh's papa. Shiloh's papa thought the same thing. But then he had quoted him something he had read from John. In fact, it was something that he had written down on his papers. He reached for them, pulled them out. But all the sea and ocean that had splashed upon him, well, had washed the charcoal off. I want to read you something. It seems to wash it off now, but it says, God so loved the world, he gave his only son. Whoever believes in him will have eternal life. God so loved the world. Whoever. And that is fine and good, my boy. But you see, when that was written, pirates weren't around. And so, you see, at the time it was true, but now it is not. It is still true for most, but not for pirates. We are too filthy a breed of human. Asher couldn't hear it. I don't know what to say. Say nothing more, my son. Say nothing more. Oh, you little Asher Robin. What a funny name. Oh, I tell you this. Let me share with you what the wonders of being a pirate is. You don't have books, you don't have Bibles, you don't have churches, but you have treasure hunts and treasure maps. Oh, such good treasure to be found out there. You see, pirates, if you were raised on a ship, you know, we bury and hide our treasure on islands, places where we can find them again, and then we die and we forget them, and other men can come and dig them up. Oh, it is such a thing to find another man's treasure. Asher Robin wasn't fond of this conversation. It had turned into the selfish, greedy kind of pirate speech that he had heard all his life growing up. It was all about treasure and taking, not about giving and being poor. Something very contrary to what the Bible says. And then he sat quiet. He felt the words had gone from him, and he was discouraged. He wished he knew what to say. He wished Seabones was wrong. This was a very sad old man. I guess that is what happens when you are simply just a set of bones floating about the sea, an empty body. Well, Seabones continued to tell him tales, stories. Oh, sea monsters hidden near the walls of ice way south of the sea, down where it's cold and freezing. Sea monsters, massive dragons swimming through the ocean, the island of dragons that lived off the coast of one of the continents of the Africas. Oh, these tales were strong. This Seabones had seen so much, it almost interested Asher Robin to just be a pirate again, to see the seas and these wonderful things. But he was a pirate, but not a pirate like that. Not an ordinary pirate. He was God's pirate. And Asher Robin realized he had wasted time here. "Oh, I should go," he said. "I should go. Well, at least let me come with you. Take me to the mainland. I beg you. I just need to go." "I can't say why not," Asher Robin said. "You have been kind to me, I will say that." Yes. Well, I'll tell you what. You want to know more about what, son? Why are you here? You came looking for pirates. You won't find pirates here. Pirates don't travel here. Sure, they might pass for deep journeys into the west, but there's nothing beyond here, just the open ocean. No, if you want to find pirates, you ought to find one of the coverts." "Well, yes, I thought that might be here," said Asher Robin. "Not here. Oh, travel east 3 days, just south of the mainland, bearing toward the rising sun, and then travel south, not a week, and you'll come upon a great series of islands, and one might call it the mainland as well, although it is not. It is a very large place, jungle-like, lots of caves and caverns, and there pirates congregate." "I've been there," said Asher, "but I cannot say I know how to get there." "Oh, your directions have been fine." "Oh, more than directions I can give you. Oh, I have a map." "You have a map?" "That's right, son. I've been this pirate, like I said, before pirates were pirates, and I have mapped all of this out. Let me take you to where I stay. I will give you this map in exchange for bringing me back to the mainland. That is all I ask." "Well, that sounds a fair bargain to me," Asher Robin said. It was getting late then, and the two journeyed up the rocks. It wasn't where the shark skeleton was. No, it was on another little bit of an island. You see, you come up on the rocks and walk a little bit, and then this is where two islands met in peaks, and Seabones seemed to have put a bridge of driftwood across, and so they crossed to it, and there was this little hut building upon the rocks, which was safe from tides and storms and whatnot, just in one of the caves. A hut, and a little fire was started, and Seabones took out a chest, and in this chest it looked like it had washed up and it was dried out. There was nothing of great value. Just a map rolled up, a set of clothes, a sword, and a compass, a looking glass. Seabones showed him the map. "You see, this is roughly where we are," he said, looking at the southwestern portion. "The mainland is up here," said he, looking at the north. "This is a few days' travel, and the covert is just over here." "This is amazing. And you made this?" "I've made this, and I've made many other maps in my journeys across the seas. I have more with me in this chest here. Look, see, you'll see what's beyond, ocean and ocean. I have a map of the south ice walls. Look." He pulled one out, rolled it out. Sure enough, he had drawn white sheets of ice, and in a circle, this great continent of ice that lived in the south, and he had drawn all kinds of sea monsters, massive snakes that swam in the sea, giant sharks and whales and octopuses. Oh, Asher was very intrigued. If this map was real, that would be a worthwhile place to go. "But no pirates venture there, lad," said Seabones, almost seeing Asher's curiosity. "And I go where pirates are," Asher said. "Ha! I told you it's not a worthwhile venture. But what can I say to a man who would give me a free ride, freedom from this island?" And so, Seabones and Asher Robin spent the night there. I tell you what happened to Howie. He stayed in that boat. He wouldn't come out. And then, in the morning, they woke up. Asher Robin had made for them some coconut tea. You see, there was coconuts growing on this island as well. Not as many, but they were there. And old Seabones really enjoyed the coconut tea. "That's a neat trick. I can't say I've tried that one," he said. Well, the two loaded up into the boat, and they set out. And they rowed, it was very clear that they wouldn't be able to row back to the mainland. And so old Seabones took apart his hammock, and they spent the next day stitching all the fabrics that they had together to make a sail. It took a few days to build the mast, but they did. And sure enough, they had turned Asher's little skiff into a tiny little pirate ship, a sailboat that could ride the winds, and they could actually make it back to the mainland. And so they set sail, and they did. Well, Howie was very quick to hide, and he hid under ropes, and he would barely want to look at this old Seabones. He did not want to be seen until he hid, and Asher Robin was fine with it. And so it was a long journey back.
How did Asher Robin get the monkey?
Remember, he got it from Captain Sparks. Chapter 5. So they head back in their ship, and yeah, they go, and they get to the mainland after a few days, and Asher Robin, the whole time he was thinking about what Seabones had said, and he sadly refused to speak more on the topic of God because he really did wonder about what Seabones had said, and so he waited. And Seabones continued to tell him tales, stories, wonderful things. Oh, the times of him being pirate, the places where he knew treasure was buried. He even took the liberty of marking an X on one of the maps for Asher. He seemed to be a very nice old Mr. Seabones. Well, they got back to the mainland. Their boat was definitely in need of some new pitch. They were very hungry for it. They had eaten all their food by then. And I'll fix it. Their sail was all torn by the time, but they rolled in. Well, Asher Robin still had that gold coin, and he reckoned he would try to use it to fix up the boat. But old Seabone says, the journey is too long. You're going to need a little bit more of a sturdy vessel. This skiff has seen much better days. Tell you what, you sell this one, we'll sell it, and you can take all the proceeds and try to find for yourself. Perhaps you can rent and go out on a fishing vessel somewhere close. I'm sure someone will be going somewhere. Take your time. Please, do not sail out in the open ocean with this. I beg you. It's a little dangerous. Well, Asher Robin decided to stay. He stayed one night and then two, and they did end up parting ways. Seabones seemed to have business to tend to. He was excited to be back, and he left the village. And Asher Robin, he was left with the maps, and he could see that on the way to the pirate covert, his island was right there. Oh, he would go home. Maybe he would spend a few days there. Maybe he would read the Bible again. And he tried to prove Seabones wrong about what he had said about God and pirates. And so, he was excited to go.
Was they actually rowing to the out?
Well, they used the sail. And I suppose we should find a way that he gets enough money. Old Seabones, maybe he tells him, look, we've buried treasure on the mainland before, but that is a few days' hike. But it would be enough, certainly, for you to buy yourself a vessel to get there. Perhaps you could do that. Well, Asher Robin, he decided to just buy a new canvas and fix his sailboat. And so he did. Took that little skiff. He spent a few days repairing it, repairing the sail. Spent his gold coin. Howie was the food finder. He went and picked bananas and berries and anything that had fallen off carts, and maybe it got squashed and there's still a good portion of it. Asher Robin was very clear. If Howie came back with something fresh and looking good and it was stolen, Asher Robin sent it back. He didn't want any stolen goods. He was going to turn Howie into a good little pirate monkey that didn't steal. And at last, finally, it was a week since he was on that fishing vessel. Asher Robin was quite tired. He hadn't slept very much, and he hadn't eaten very much. But he was ready to set sail. Finally, he did. He had made for himself some bread that he could An old pirate's trick of making bread and coconuts. That's a weird thing to do. But he had learned it, actually. You could take flour, and sometimes flour would wash up, and most of it was all soaked and soppy. But just on the inside, if it hadn't been that long, or if it had been in a barrel, a sack of flour, you could get a handful of almost salty, moist flour. But it was still good, and you could quickly mix it in with some water and bake it over the fire, and it would make some kind of bread, something at least of nourishment. Well, he quickly made that, filled up his bag as much as he could. The rations were small, and it wasn't that great. But he was setting out to sea, and there were fish in the sea. So he made for himself a line, found a piece of metal that he could bend into a hook, and he would fish as he went. He was very excited to at last be traveling home. While the winds weren't in his favor, he probably would be home in a little while. But he would be home at last. And when he got to his island, I tell you, Asher Robin was very, very surprised.
The Adventures of Asher Robin. Book 1. Dawn of the Greatest Treasure Hunt. Chapter 7. He can save anyone.
Well, I've already told you that Asher Robin was very surprised when he got back to his island. I haven't exactly shared with you why just yet, and I'm going to. But first I should tell you that Shiloh has a big sister. You remember her. We never really got to meet her because she was out when he was there. Anyways, when Asher Robin pulled up to his island, he was very happy. He had never taken Howie there, and he was so excited to stop in and show his new monkey friend his wonderful island. Well, there were more coconuts than ever. There were more crabs than ever. Everything had been replenished because he hadn't lived there for a month now, traveling the seas. And it was so good to be home. He was so excited to get back to his cabin, to read his Bible again, and just to explore the island and show Howie all the little spots. But he was shocked when he heard, "Hey!" a call from down the beach. He turned and saw a person. A person on his island? Oh no, he thought. Maybe this person thought that it could be their island. And because Asher Robin wasn't there, somebody had taken it. Well, I guess he could just talk about it. Anyways, he decided to stop being afraid and run down the beach toward the person. Well, that person was running toward them. Sure enough, as he got closer, he noticed it was a girl. She was about his age, maybe a little bit older. "Ahoy there!" he yelled. "Hi! Are you Asher Robin? Are you God's pirate?" Asher Robin was shocked. She knew who he was. "Oh, yes, I am. Who's asking?" "My name is Rubina. I'm here with my little brother Shiloh." "Shiloh?" Asher said. That's right. We came here because, it's terrible business. And he says that you can help. I know you must help. We need you. Okay, I'm in the business of helping. Yes, I'm God's pirate after all. But where is Shiloh? And what do you need? "A howler monkey," said Rubina. "How did you get a monkey?" "Oh, this came from Captain Sparks." Rubina said. I don't like it. I don't like it one bit. The business we have is our parents were kidnapped by the very Captain Sparks. Oh, please help us find him. Will you help us find him? We need to get our parents back." Asher Robin was quiet for a little while. That is quite the task, but I am on my way to a pirate covert, and I figured I would stop here just to rest for a little while. So I guess, yes, you can come with me. And maybe we'll find Captain Sparks there.
the timing of it all. I thank the Lord. I thank God that he brought you here. And, well, God hasn't really been helping very much. He let my parents get kidnapped. Well, said Asher, he let me get taken as well, back when I was a child. I wasn't always a pirate, you see. Before I remember, I was something else, I guess. But I think God lets everything happen the way he wants it to, so that we would know about him and what? I don't know. I guess we should just trust God always. That's what I'm saying. Okay, well, tell you what. I'll trust God when I get my parents back, said Rubina. Okay. Well, hey Rubina, where's Shiloh? You can call me Ruby, and he was out exploring over there. This is a nice island you've got here. Pretty small, but it works. You've got everything you need. Sure do. I like this place. What? Shiloh! Ruby called. Shiloh came running from the bushes. Asher Robin! Shiloh ran down the beach and gave Asher a big hug. Oh, the little boy had gone just a little bit taller. He was now 6.5. Oh, Asher hugged him back. Shiloh, oh, it's good to see you, little guy. How have you been? Oh, not good, said Shiloh. It's good to see you, but I'm not good. Oh, did Ruby tell you? She told me. Shiloh looked like he was about to cry. It's okay, we'll go. We'll find them. Oh, thank you, Asher, thank you. I was wondering when you would get back. We've been here for a whole week already. A whole week? Asher said. Oh, no. Okay, well, we best set off soon then, I guess. Well, said Shiloh. Yeah, the winds are blowing east right now. Do you know where to go? Oh, yeah, we're supposed to go east and south. And there should be a covert not 2 weeks this way. I have a map. A map? Yeah, that's right. God sent me someone to give me directions to do this, and I suppose I wasn't sure why then, but I sure know now, and I'm really glad I stopped. Hey, Shiloh, look, this is my monkey. His name is Howie. Asher showed Howie to Shiloh. Shiloh was amazed to see the monkey. And with that, Howie ran off, and he ran up a tree and got a coconut and ran around and picked up a crab and threw it again and was having so much fun. And well, the kids decided that they would stay the night, obviously. It was midday, and so Asher showed them how to make a nice supper. He showed them where he had kept all his things, and he made a fire and cooked a lovely crab stew and coconut tea. Oh, they had a good evening. It was sad because there was a lot of worry and anxiety about where Shiloh and Ruby's parents were, but they were thankful that they had found God's pirate and that he was willing to help. Say, how did all this happen? I remember Captain Sparks was the ship that raided your village. Yeah, sure did. Well, he came back, actually, and, he came and he took the adults. All of them? No, not all of them. Some got away, but, yeah, lots of them. He took them. And, well, what about you? Well, said Ruby, Mom and Papa hid us underneath the floorboards in our house, so we were safe. It was scary business, Asher. It was so scary. And I wanted to fight, I really did. When I got the courage, they were already gone, and, well, I had Shiloh to look after, you see. I think you did the right thing, Ruby. And even when family splits up, it's important to stay together with whomever you can. And plus, fighting pirates, that's not a good business. That's a nasty thing for us to do. Well, I will fight them, said Ruby. And if I get my hands on that Captain Sparks, I'm gonna wring his whole... Hey, I'm in no position to bring anybody to do any harm. That's not the God's pirate way. Yeah, God's pirate, listen to yourself. You be you. But that's not me. I want to find my parents, and I want to make that Sparks suffer. Well, said Asher, I think I'll try to convince you out of that. I've had a conversation once with Sparks, and I'd like to again. I want to tell him about God and Jesus and forgiveness from his sins. That's what being God's pirate is all about. Ruby laughed. She was very much like her dad, her papa. She didn't think that pirates should be saved. Well, said Asher, maybe we should head in for the night. It's getting dark. Shiloh was he wanted to keep staying up and hearing about Asher's tales, and so Asher said, well, maybe a little bit longer. Asher told him about the shipping, the whaling vessel that he was on, and climbing inside a whale, and meeting Mr. Old Seabones, and the shark skeleton with the boot in it, and how God saved them from black bones. Oh, it was wonderful. Shiloh felt like he was living Asher's life through these tales. And then Asher told him and showed him the maps of the sea dragons and the Isle of the Dragons and the great sea monsters that lay in the south. Wow, the love for seafaring was stirring in Shiloh's heart. Oh, I'm excited to set sail tomorrow. Well, yeah, but we have a long voyage, and I think we should spend tomorrow gathering food and supplies and finding a way to store them on my little boat. You see, we're going to be out there for a long time. Well, we could fish as we go, said Rubina. Yeah, there'll be lots of fish. Well, you never know. Sometimes the fish get real big, deep sea. Oh, sure, I know that. I'm a fisherman's daughter. What are you saying? Asher, I don't mean any offense by it, Ruby. And just, sometimes it's nice to bring along a few coconuts and some herbs. Yeah, well, I guess you're right. We'll pack smart. Maybe we'll drag a barrel behind the boat. I think that'll work. We can put the things that can get wet back there. Coconuts and whatnot. Sounds good to me. We'll start gathering tomorrow and leave the day after. Okay, let's turn in. Say, have you been sleeping in my cabin? Well, sure have, said Ruby. I hope you don't mind. Shiloh said it would be fine. Oh yes, that is more than fine. I guess I'll find a place outside, maybe. I guess maybe I'll take the floor. Oh, no, you won't, said Ruby. No, you sleep outside. Asher was surprised. Here this girl was telling him that he couldn't sleep in his own house. That's okay. I'll sleep in the caves. The caves? Said Shiloh. Yeah, the caves at the back of the island. A wonderful rock structure. The caves go down a little bit, and there's a pool down there too. It's really nice. If you swim through, it'll actually lead to the ocean. It's an amazing little tunnel. Sounds like a back door, said Shiloh. I guess you could say that if it was a fortress, but it's a long swim, and you got to hold your breath for quite some time. Oh, can I sleep in the caves too? Said Shiloh. No, Ruby said. You'll be in the cabin, safe with me. I'm fine with it, said Asher. I said I'm not, said Ruby. Oh, but what about what I say? Shiloh said. I want to sleep at the caves with Asher. That'll be fun. Ruby said, well, fine, but maybe we'll all sleep in the caves. Asher laughed. Well, if we all sleep in the caves, we might as well sleep in the cabin. Okay, fine. You boys take the caves, I'll take the cabin. But say, Ruby, I wouldn't mind coming to the cabin and just seeing the old place. It has been a while, and, well, I would sure like to get my Bible from there. I plan not sleeping much. I want to read. It's been too long. Read the Bible. You read? Well, sure do, said Asher. Reading is everything. Reading is amazing. If you read, you can understand the history and know what's going to happen next. And it's incredible, all the stories that are out there. Well, I can read a map, and I know the price and pound of scales and all such things and red fins. But sure, books. I don't need no books, I guess. Well, you say that now, but how about I tell you a story? We'll see if you change your mind. Okay. So they headed back to the cabin, and Asher took on a story. He lit a few candles that he had made in the cabin, and then he sat down and he read a story from the Bible. A wonderful story. Which story should it be, boys?
David and Goliath.
David and Goliath. One of Asher's favorites. David and Goliath. Wow, said Ruby. I've heard this story before, but there's so much more to it. Oh, David was a shepherd boy, and he fought off a lion, and oh, that's amazing. It is. And there's more. It keeps going. It tells the whole life of David and all the things he did. And this book is amazing. You could read it forever and never know enough. But there's one thing that I need to look at. Remember how I met old Mr. Seabones? Well, yeah. Well, he said what you said. And he said what your papa said. He said what everybody seems to say, that God can't save pirates. Well, it's because he won't. He can't. Why would he love them? They're awful, mean. I was a pirate once, said Asher. Ruby sat quiet. Shiloh smiled. Sure were, Asher. Still are. You're God's pirate, right? Asher laughed. And tears ran down his cheeks. That I am, Shiloh. That I am. If God can save me, a pirate, and make me God's pirate, well, anyone, he could do that to anybody. And just then that reminded him of something he had read once. The Apostle Paul. He had read somewhere that the Apostle Paul had said something like that about him. Paul, churches, you know churches, said Asher. Ruby said, well, yeah, they have those on the mainland. Big things with guys dressed in fancy things. Not much for us folk, but we go every once and often. If we're there, we'll stay in for one. Well, they didn't sound too much like that from back then, but Paul says that he tried to kill people in the church. What? Said Ruby. You mean the great Apostle Paul? You know, the guy like St. Paul that they name all those buildings after? Yeah, him. Well, he tried to kill all the Christians. And somewhere in there, I need to find this. I have to find this Bible in the Bible. But he said that he was saved from that, so that, what does he say? Something about, that he might be an example, that God might show grace to any sinner. Oh, even to pirates, I say, said Asher, getting excited. He stood up. He grabbed his Bible. I'm going to read through the writings of Paul, and I'm going to find this, and we're going to show this to pirates and show them. Old Mr. Seabones is wrong. You're wrong, Ruby. And just then he got a little embarrassed that he had yelled at her in saying such. God loves you. He loves everything. He loves everybody. And he can save anyone. He can do it. He's God after all. Ruby and Shiloh got excited too. This was the famous Asher Robin, God's pirate, captain of his own little skiff with his own crew made out of one howler monkey. And there he stood, preaching to them the good news and passion and greatness and power and all the things that God has done and would do. And Asher continued on in it, being God's pirate. Well, that night was a wonderful night. Ruby fell asleep in the cabin. Asher and Shiloh went to the caves, made for themselves little beds, and they talked and they talked and they talked. And Shiloh had all kinds of questions about the Bible, all kinds of questions about being a pirate and the ocean and the seas and great fish stories. It was an amazing time. And when Shiloh had finally fallen asleep, Asher snuggled up next to the fire, and he opened his Bible, and he read. He started reading the Gospel of John again, and he cried and cried to hear about Jesus' miracles and Jesus' love for people. And then he read through the book of Acts. But just when he was getting near the end, he got to his favorite part about Paul's shipwreck and being stranded on the island Malta and the prisoners trying to swim. He loved that story. But then, just as he was getting to near the book of Acts, he fell asleep. And he slept quite deeply for some time. The sun started to rise. The sun didn't get into the cave just much. It was rising in the east, but it was a red sun hidden behind some late summer clouds. And so he was up just after breakfast time. Shiloh was sleeping too. The little boy probably hadn't slept very well since his parents was taken. So Asher, he rolled over, stoked the fire, and he went out to the sea to look for a fish. A little red fish swam up to his feet. It was a nice little fish. Then he saw a bigger one over yonder. He quickly reached in and grabbed it. He was quick. He had practiced that a lot. He brought it back to the fire and put it on, started to cook it for breakfast. Wow, the smell of fish woke Shiloh pretty soon. The two ate it, and they figured they should take some for Ruby too. But Asher took his Bible along, and when they were gathering, he would read as much as he could. Read through. He continued through, finished the book of Acts, got to the book of Romans. Then he went to 1 Corinthians and 2 Corinthians, and he was reading so fast. He didn't pick it all up. He didn't see it all, but he just kept reading, and he loved it. And he almost wished he had another year to sit on that island and keep reading. Oh, the joys of reading Scripture. Asher Robin was enthralled. I tell you this now, if you don't know how to read, I guess you do because you're reading this. But if you don't read the Bible more than any other book, you really should. Asher Robin is a testimony of it, and I am too. It is such a book, an amazing book. Well, he told tales and he sung songs all day that day while they gathered supplies, getting coconuts, filling a barrel full of coconuts, making sure it would float, tying it to the back of the skiff, filling the skiff with bananas and all kinds of things. They baked some bread as much as they could, and they carried along some crab. They put crab in the barrel as well so that they would keep in the ocean. And Asher sung a song. Packing the barrel, taking the coconuts, putting the crabs in, bananas in the boat. We will go, oh, we'll go, and we'll row, and we'll sail south, going to the pirates' covert, finding the pirates. And then he stopped. He realized this was a solemn mission. He wanted to sing still, but this was serious business. Dangerous business, even. Going to pirates. It had felt so different before when it was just him. But now he had a crew. He had Ruby. He had Shiloh. And these pirates were sometimes dangerous. Could he get away? If there was trouble, he could get away, but what about poor little Shiloh? He would have to stay with him and watch him. And Ruby, too. She seemed fierce. But they were just children, after all. Well, he walked off into the bushes. He fell to his knees, and he decided to sing to God. He sung a song. It was a long song. It was a prayer, and it went something like this. Oh my God, I need you. I'm going into the jaws of a great beast. Every teeth has a sword. Every tooth has a loaded pistol. Pirates surround, and they might just devour us all. Oh Lord, I need you. Protect me and my friends from the danger ahead. Oh Lord, please help us find Shiloh and Ruby's parents. And Lord, I pray one day you'll help me find mine too.
The Adventures of Asher Robin, God's Pirate. Book 1, Dawn of the Greatest Treasure Hunt, Chapter 8. The greatest treasure hunt has already begun. I suppose we should address the title of this book. I called it The Dawn of the Greatest Treasure Hunt. The dawn means the rising, like the morning. The dawn, the rising sun. And so it really means beginning. This is the beginning of a quest, not just any quest, a treasure hunt. And not just any treasure hunt, the greatest treasure hunt. That's what this book details. And it involves, as you know, God's pirate, Asher Robin. And now, who has joined him but his little friend Shiloh, and Shiloh's older sister, Ruby. And it's an exciting treasure hunt, but I must tell you now that these stories and these books, yes, there is tons of treasure. Boxes of gold, caves of gold, mines of gold, sure, yes. But that is not the treasure of which I speak. What do you think the treasure, the greatest treasure hunt, leads to? Well, I suppose I will tell you at the end, because I don't want to spoil it. But I want you to imagine, and I want you to think, maybe it's not gold or jewels. Maybe it's something. Maybe it's someone. Maybe it's someone for someone. Maybe. With that, we'll return to talking about Asher Robin, his sweet little friend Shiloh, and his big sister Ruby. I told you that they were gathering supplies, that they were to set sail. They had a barrel full of coconuts and crabs. They loaded their boat up with some bananas, as much as made sense. Howie was there at the top of the mast. They had reinforced the mast. The sail was holding up very well, the one that Asher Robin had bought and sewed. So they were almost ready to go. Asher Robin said that prayer and sung that song, and the Lord comforted his heart. I can't tell you how, I can't tell you with what, but in the way that God does, he gave him peace. And Asher Robin remembered the mission, but he was careful to watch for Shiloh and Rubina to make sure that they would be safe from this as well. Well, Asher sure didn't have enough time, as much time as he wanted, to be able to read the scriptures. He wished he could stay there forever, actually, or at least another year and study them again. He had forgotten so much. It was so difficult sometimes to call to mind the things that he had read, and that's why he wanted to read them again and again and again, just as you should. But he knew that they were losing time, and they had to go find Captain Sparks. And they had to learn what happened to Shiloh and Ruby's parents. That was his mission. All the while, he would be God's pirate, not just serving God's children, but getting more by his power. Oh, he was excited to go then, realizing the mission, remembering the call. Dangers might come, but dangers go just as easily as they come, maybe even easier if you're brave. And so, Asher would be brave. He came back out of the bushes, and soon they were all packed and ready to go, and they set sail. The wind was just right. The map was out, the compass was out, and they were navigating the seas before long, finding their way, following the direction to go where they needed to go. Well, that first day was a joyous one. It was calm. The seas were great. The wind was fine too. Even Ruby let down a line and a net and caught a nice-sized fish. And then they were going by a school, and she let down her net and got a few more. Well, their supper was great. They had, I will tell you that they didn't bother to cook the fish on the boat. That was a difficult thing to do. They simply just skinned the fish and took off fillets and ate it raw. That is something you can do, I would say. It's a little hard on the stomach if you're not used to it, but those pirates sure were. And I should tell you at this time that Rubina refused to be called a pirate. Shiloh liked the idea, but she would have nothing to do with it. She hated pirates all the still, except maybe Asher Robin. He was a good pirate, being God's pirate. But then the night came. The moon showed up, and with that came a great wind.
and with that wind came great waves. At first the wind was pushing them along quite well, and they really had to work the rudder in order to stay on track, holding the mast in certain places to get going where they want to go. But then the waves came, and it became very clear that direction following would not matter until the next day. You could not see because of the splashing waves and because of the darkness. You could not see the compass. You could not see the map. And Asher was straining at candlelight to see. But then water would splash out the candle. It became futile. And so he tied the ropes of the mast to the bow, and they would sit tight. They would weather the storm. Well, the ship was only a few feet wide and many feet long, and about three tall. And so there was a great deal of bailing that needed to be done. I tell you, if you don't know what bailing is or what it feels like, it's quite a frightful thing to do in the dark because the water never seems to stop. Now, Shiloh was a little bit afraid. He had, of course, weathered such storms before, but that was always with his parents. This was the first time with Rubina, who seemed a little stressed herself. But they kept going, being brave. They bailed and they bailed and they bailed, bucket upon bucket, coming out until finally the sun began to rise and they were exhausted. Well, there was barely any water in the ship and everything was fine. The mast was fine, the sail was fine, the ship exterior was fine, their storage of food was fine, everything was great. Howie was really wet and quite a grumpy little howler monkey at that time, but everything was fine. The storm had merely been something difficult to weather. But it left them tired because they didn't sleep that night. They strained and they had worked. And so Asher told Rubina and Shiloh to curl up together and to sleep the morning away. And he would get their bearings and continue on in the direction they needed to go. Well, the wind stopped blowing the exact way they needed to go and shifted to go southwest, which was perfectly fine, you see, because you could still angle the sail in order to get there. It was just a little bit slower. And so they sailed not against the wind, not necessarily with the wind, but on a fair course. It would probably add, if they were going straight, it would probably add perhaps a day or so. But then again, old Mr. Seabones had said it was not a week, about 5-6 days, he said. Well, maybe it would be 7, maybe it would be 8. It had already been a week and a half since Captain Sparks had taken their parents. I don't think a week would make one difference, but we shall see. And so they continued their sail, and by the time the sun was nice and hot, Ruby and Shiloh were awake, and they were hungry. Well, they drank some coconut, and then they cracked it open, ate the flesh, and they decided to pull out one of the crabs and munch on one of them and have some bananas. Howie had the crab as well. You see, he was a monkey that was quite used to eating the strange things that pirates ate. And they continued on like that. Ruby manned the sails while Asher slept until evening, and so that he was rested for the night. But thankfully the night was very calm. So Asher sat on his spot at the front of the boat, and he prayed until the night was very dark and very deep, and he tied the sails, and he too fell asleep. And it was another wonderful night. Well, I tell you, there wasn't much eventful for the next 3 days until they were nearing the second last day of their journey. And all of a sudden, the waters changed because they were getting near this great island that the pirate covert was supposedly on. And getting near the great island led them to a place where many sharks like to be. You see, there's all kinds of delicious fish in the area. And so, the first sight was a tiger shark. Not a big one, but one to be wary of. Their boat would be fine against it. And Rubina even had in mind maybe she would harpoon it, spear it, eat the fins. But no, that was too much of a risk for a trek like this. And they had enough food, and they ought not to be selfish. But then, that afternoon, they saw a great, great big shark. The fin appeared far off. Asher looked through his looking glass. He could see it was tattered. It had cuts. This was a very large, very old shark. Well, it appeared far away, and he could see it in the glittering sun on the sea, and then it appeared closer on the other side, and then closer. And for about an hour it seemed to circle them, until the sun began to set, and then the fin got even closer. Suddenly, this great beast of a white shark came gliding along with them. If you believe me, I tell you, this shark was twice the length of their boat. It was terrifying to behold. It swam under them, it swam around them, and it peeked over to see them. Well, I tell you, this white shark was a pirate-hating shark. You see, pirates like to feast on sharks and like to feed sharks. But this shark had grown a very distasteful liking toward pirates. For being so big, it often was hit by ships, and they would spear it, and they would come after it, and they would throw men to it with swords and to fight it even, and it would always win, but it was quite a nasty breakfast. So this shark didn't like pirates, and I suppose it was a little bit of a protection of the island that was coming, because you see, it would often come and it would charge against a ship and break a hole in its stern and have water leak in, and, well, you can imagine what it did with the crew. Not just pirates, anybody venturing that far out. This was a very dangerous shark, and pirates knew to avoid it, or to feed it, or to beat it. But it was always a risk. Well, Rubina had heard things of white sharks that swam in the southern seas. Of course, she was the daughter of a fisherman. She had heard of all of these things, but she had never beheld such a large shark. She had seen whales larger, of course. Shiloh had been inside a whale that was near the size, not as big as this, however. But she had never seen this large of a shark, a fish of great size. Asher thought of Jonah. Well, this could have been something that could have swallowed a man for sure. But being afraid of it, he knelt down and he encouraged Rubina and Shiloh to do the same. And he said, "Pray for us that this thing won't have it in mind to tip us over, because it very well could. A simple breach of the ocean, a slam of the body, a bite on the bow, anything could bring their little vessel down." And they knew it, and they prayed for a God to protect them. Asher recited a psalm. It says, when he was in the deep, the Lord was with him, and he prayed for protection. And I tell you that it is an important thing to pray. You see, God would protect them. God would keep that shark from coming upon them. And you might ask, well, was it their prayers that did it, or was it God?
It was God.
I tell you, it was done. And so you do your part and trust the Lord to do his. That's as simple as that. And it was done. And so they were safe. They had a very unrestful sleep, though, because, of course, the shark disappeared from sight. But it was night, and Asher thought he could see the moonlight reflecting on a white body far away in the water. So they had a restless night. But sure enough, nothing happened, and they did not see that shark again on that voyage. By the morning, they were still hungry. They were still tired and quite very hungry. Shiloh decided that he would sleep a little bit longer, sleep a little bit in, and miss breakfast. Rubina and Asher got to talking while Shiloh slept. Well, they talked long about childhood and memories. They both grew up on the seas quite a bit, and Rubina explained to him her disdain for pirates even before this. The pirates were always invading, and she had wished that the empire had come and established some kind of post to keep pirates out. Asher explained that the empire doesn't necessarily keep pirates out, but typically they'll pay the pirates, or the pirates will demand such. It's just a nasty business. and that's why he wants to change it. Well, they continued to debate whether or not the problem of pirates was changeable and if pirates were savable. But Rubina eventually just trusted Asher. And of course, he was the pirate that was going to help her save her parents. And so she learned to like Asher, to appreciate him. And then they woke up Shiloh because the evening was coming on and they could at last see the island. Through the looking glass, they could spot it. It was large. It was massive. It was land. It was a mainland of some kind. After all, don't we all live on islands? Well, it would be another day, and they would approach midday the next day if the wind was right. And they did. But they would sail. And what they did, instead of approaching the island, is they sailed about it, looking for ships. Well, on the side that they had come, there were no ships. But they sailed south and then around.
There was a shark.
And it took another day to sail south before they saw a ship. It was far off, and Asher could see it just in the distance. He knew if he could see it, they could see them if they looked exactly at the right place. But of course, that pirate ship was much bigger, and that pirate ship would need to know exactly where to see such a little skiff of a vessel that they were manning. So they decided to go on shore, and they would walk the rest of the way. So they parked their boat. They lowered the sail. They dragged it into the tree line. The sand was soft. The trees were large, and they hid it there. And they took time to collect leaves and branches to cover it. And then they set out in the direction of where that ship was, assuming there would be there pirates. The Adventures of Asher Robin, God's Pirate. Book 1, Dawn of the Greatest Treasure Hunt. Chapter 9, Pirates, Pirates, Pirates. Well, at last, Asher Robin had arrived. And when he started walking through the jungle, that's the title of the chapter, Pirates, Pirates, Pirates. You'll find out. Asher Robin walked through the jungle on that great big island, that great big land, with Rubina and Shiloh at his side. They stayed near the shoreline so that they could see the beach and see the water, so that they always knew that they were heading in the direction they wanted to. You see, they knew if they wandered too thick into the jungle, they might get lost, because they had no idea how far back the jungle went before the other side of the island, if there was another side of that island, if there was an island at all. You see, when you do not know a land, you do not know it, and you must be careful and cautious. And so Asher Robin was. And plus, they needed to tiptoe, because they needed to tiptoe and stay by the beach, because perhaps at any time pirates could come and pirates could see them. So they snuck through the tree line. They had to watch themselves. They saw plenty of snakes, there were plenty of flies and plenty of mosquitoes and lots of different types of birds flittering around. Well, Howie had a good time of it. He kept swinging, and nobody seemed to... If any pirate did see a swinging monkey through the trees, it wasn't abnormal. You see, this was a jungle, and there were monkeys there, of course. Not howler monkeys like Howie, but monkeys nonetheless. They kept on going, and they walked for some time. It was nearly the end of the day, but when they decided to make camp, they refused to make a fire. Asher Robin said that was going to be unwise. They had each taken along 2 coconuts in a satchel, and 3 bananas each, and leftover fish from their fishing, and they would eat that, and they would ration it carefully. They did find berries along the way, but they smelt very bitter and not good to eat. They also found different kinds of fungi, but that wasn't good. All kinds of lizards, little rodents and mammals, but nothing was particularly safe to eat. You never know when something is venomous. And if you do know, great. But one should be very careful when eating things that they you do not know, especially the bright and colorful things that can be found in a jungle. Well, they slept for the night, but they were careful not to sleep on the ground. They climbed up into the trees, and if there were large branches, they could spread them across to make little beds. They took along sheets to make hammocks, and they were very wise because they knew spiders and snakes like to go about on the floors of jungles at nights, and well, those could be very dangerous. And so, a few feet off the ground, relatively safe, they slept. But Rubina and Asher took turns keeping watch. That meant they stayed awake, watching. Asher for the first 4 hours of the night, and Rubina for the remaining 3. And Asher slept a little bit, but he prayed a lot, praying for God's guidance, praying for God's wisdom, and praying for God to be with them as they went to this mission. You see, what he had set out to do was to help Rubina and Shiloh track down their parents, and that meant finding the pirate captain Sparks. Well, if he wasn't here, then they would have to ask about where he was, and then they would need to go there. But all the while, Asher Robin would be in contact with pirates, and he could speak the gospel to them and talk to them about how God loves them. God wants them to turn from their wicked ways, and perhaps some might join him. Oh, he prayed so hopefully that one would join him, maybe 2, maybe 3. He would have to see pirates first. Well, I tell you, the vessel, the big ship that laid over this coast, they saw very clearly that it was a pirate ship, and it had docked. Well, another one was coming in, and they did not fight. They walked along the coastline, and Asher could stop and take out his looking glass to look at what was happening in the sea. The ships came near each other, and the other one docked next to the next. There was clearly something happening on that part of the island, something piratey. And it was very interesting, the pirates did not attack each other. A fleet, perhaps, maybe up to the same captain, 2 ships. That was very strange and rare, but respect was often found between captains who had been there for very long. It was usually the younger captains who were haughty and unwise and would attack other ones and try to take over, and that never ended well. Well, and then there was the older, more powerful captains who were strong and brave and wise and, well, very cruel. And so they could control a great many pirates, and some of the younger captains would be submissive to them and even help them in different pillages and coordinate attacks. Well, this was rare in this area of the sea. They typically kept to themselves, raiding what they could and where they could. But here were 2 pirate ships next to each other. And boy, Asher knew where he was almost as they drew close. Asher had been on that shore before as a little boy, maybe even Shiloh's age. He had played on there. So he had been here before. This was indeed a pirate covert, one of them. And he had been to this one before. In fact, this was the pirate covert for the area. It was huge, he remembered, thinking it was massive. And, he remembered something else. There were plenty of pirates. Lots and lots and lots of pirates. He was just a boy then. Now, maybe it had grown, maybe it had not. But here are 2 vessels. Okay, said Asher. I do remember this place now. I do not know what it's called, but I have been here, and I can tell you there are plenty of pirates here. Well, there sure were. When they got close, they were careful not to be seen by scouts. They snuck along rocks and through caverns and tunnels and by the beach and over by trees and any which way they could where they could not see pirates very clearly. And they hid, and they hid. But when at last they saw the docks, a wooden road led up to a village. This village was mainly within a cave, but one could see the mouth quite well. There was fire coming out of it, and Asher remembered that there was shops and merchants in there. Not really the normal type of merchants and shops that you could imagine, but pirates offering plunder, trading plunder, and oftentimes taking and fighting for it. Well, I will tell you now that if a squabble went out, there were no police, there were no prisoners, there were just swords and pistols. That was kind of the pirate way, unfortunately. So they peered in, creeped along, and looked toward where the pirates were. They were on the rocks. They had a high up vantage. They actually were close to on top of the roof on another side of the ridge, so that they could only be seen if they were really being looked for. Howie crept along with Asher, Shiloh and Ruby behind him. They peered their little heads out, and they looked down, and they could see pirates. Pirates! Pirates! So many pirates. Big pirates and small pirates. Little boy pirates and girl pirates. Woman pirates and other monkey pirates. All kinds of pirates all over the place doing all kinds of things. Some were fighting, some were dueling, some were playing games, some were making deals, some were trading, some were eating, and so many were howling in laughter. But the horrific thing was there wasn't just pirates. There were dirty people too. Dirty people in ragged clothing with chains about their ankles being filed in a line from one place to another. These were people being sold, no doubt. These were captured people, forced into some kind of slavery perhaps. Asher was disgusted. Never in all of his years of piracy had Captain Griffin taken somebody to sell. Well, Captain Sparks had threatened to sell him, and sure enough, he had taken Shiloh and Ruby's parents. This was a different kind of piracy, a different kind of trade that he was hurt by. People were loved by God, not to be sold like an apple or like an object or like a mule or a workhorse. This was an awful thing. And Asher prayed right then and there that he could put an end to it. "O Lord, why do you let the wicked do such things? Help me save them. Not just those who need rescuing, not just the captors, but these people, these pirates who are captive to their own wicked ways. Oh, help me free them. In the name of Jesus, go before me. Help us free them," he said. He started to get passionate and realized that there was pirates all around below him, and he should quiet down by either pray in his mind or whisper. But with that, the three of them and little Howie, they backed away, and they would plan on what to do. Well, Ruby said she didn't see her parents. She was excited when she saw the line of people, but neither did she see her mom or her dad. "Well, we've got to find Captain Sparks," Asher said. That's the way that we're going to talk to him, and I suppose convince him to let us." "Oh, I'll convince him, right." "All right," Ruby said, pulling her sword a few inches out to show its shiny, sharp blade. "Not like that, Ruby, not like that. We'll talk to him. I'll talk to him with my steel. That's enough of this, okay? We'll find him. But you let me be in charge, okay? After all, even if we have a small vessel and a small crew, I reckon I am the captain, yes?" Shiloh said, "Oh, of course, Asher, you're the captain. You're God's pirate, after all. The only one of us that is a pirate. Well, if it was a fishing vessel, which I would say it is because it's done more fishing and it came off a whaling ship," said Rubina, "I ought to be the captain, even if I am a girl. I would make a great captain, you see." "Well, we shan't argue about this," said Asher. "Let's just go see if we can find him." "Well, how are we going to do that?" "Well, I look like a pirate. I suppose I could walk in, and I've been there before, and perhaps people will recognize me. Well, say your old captain there. What was his name? Griff something? Griffin. Yeah, if he is there. I've been wanting to talk to him as well. I've been wanting to see him. Say hello and tell him what's happened to me." "Well, say he takes you back." "Well, he won't take me back because he freed me, you see. He wouldn't want someone like me. I'm not willing to do the things that he's willing to do." "Okay, well, what do we do?" said Ruby. I know it's hard for me to ask you to stay put, and I don't necessarily want you to do that. I want you to watch, and I want you to wait, see if you can discover things. I trust you to look around, but please, do not talk with the pirates. Do not engage with the pirates. Stay far from the pirates. Scout what you can. Make sure to be safe. And I suppose, perhaps, we will stay the night here together. In the morning, I shall enter there, and I shall look. No, I think I shall go now. I think pirate business happens at night a lot, you see. So, if Captain Sparks is out, well, I think he'll be out tonight. In there. Maybe. Lord knows. But I'll go as soon as the sun sets. I'll come in. And suppose they ask how you got here. Well, I guess I could go when the next ship comes in. Well, can you see one coming? Well, the sun is setting now, and it's hard to see. Let me look. Asher peered through his looking glass. And sure enough, by providence, there was another ship coming in. A smaller one, but it was flying the pirate flag, skull and crossbones, which meant death. I'll go when they come in. I suppose I'll slip in, and maybe there'll be an influx of new pirates, and I'll be looked over. It's quite the risk you're taking there. Huh. I'm not sure anything is a risk, and I'm sure everything is a risk. I'm sure everything is a risk, but at the same time, I'm not sure anything is a risk when the Lord is on our side. You have a lot of faith, Asher Robin. You ought to go be a leader in a church one day, maybe even a preacher. Well, I'm not sure it isn't for me, but I don't necessarily see those big fancy churches that you talked about in the Bible. Seems everybody met in homes, I think. At least that's from what I remember. You know, there was a time when the Apostle Paul was preaching and someone got so bored he fell asleep and fell out of a window and died? Shiloh gasped. What? What do you mean he died? Well, he didn't stay dead. Paul came and prayed for him, and the man was raised. That's a crazy story, said Ruby. What's the point of that? I don't know, but it's kind of funny when you think about it. Paul talking and someone falling asleep. Oh, I've definitely done that before, said Shiloh. But I haven't fallen out a window. I guess I have God to thank for that. Sure do. Okay, well, you guys make camp here, and let's meet, I'd say, maybe tomorrow night, or at least in the midday. You camp here, and if you can, walk around, but be back by the sunset, and I will come to you, and we'll see what I've learned. Okay, Asher, Ruby said. I do wish the best to you. She came up to him, and she hugged him, and Shiloh did as well. The three held each other for a bit. They had grown to love each other. And then Asher put his head on Shiloh's shaggy hair and said, "Take care of your sister, hey, bud?" "I will there, Asher. I will there." And so with that, Asher climbed down the rocks. And Ruby and Shiloh, they did too. And they went into the forest just a little bit. Or no, Ruby and Shiloh stayed where there was a nice cleft, a good patch where they could lie down and rest. Probably not too deeply because he wouldn't want to roll down the rest of the cliff, but Asher climbed to the bottom, and then he approached the cave. And I will tell you that he felt a great anxiousness because he was about to go into a place that he had been before, but this was the first time he was going alone, the first time he was going without his captain, the first time he was going as not one of the other pirates, but as a different kind of pirate. The Adventures of Asher Robin, God's Pirate. Book 1, Dawn of the Greatest Treasure Chest. Chapter 9.
Is it actually the greatest treasure?
Sorry, Dawn of the Greatest Treasure Hunt. Chapter 10. No Conversion Conversation. Well, there he was, Asher Robin, God's pirate, alone, walking toward pirates. He was very excited, very nervous, very happy, very afraid, all at once. What happened from it all was his stomach felt sick, but he walked forward. Well, there weren't any guards, so there wasn't any leadership. This was just a place for pirates to go and be with each other for attaining whatever needs they had or services, getting bigger crews, etc. There wasn't any rule except that you shouldn't
you shouldn't have any fights where other pirates were. It was pretty chaotic if that happened. Most agreed that they'd settle disputes outside of the cave, on the beach or in the forest. Well, so Asher walked in without being stopped. There was a line of pirates coming in, a few. There was a captain that went first from the shipping vessel, and Asher, he waited until they had all come in, and then at the back of the line, he walked in. Nobody noticed him. He kept walking. And then he slipped from the procession of pirates that had just come in and continued. He saw plenty of pirates. And now he was in the part of the cave which couldn't be seen from above, but he had been there before. A great cavern, massive openings that led to another beach. It was filled with all sorts of pirate things and pirate people. It was quite the place. And if you were a dirty, mean pirate, you would probably really like it there. But if you were just like anybody else, not necessarily dirty, mean, terrible, nasty pirate, you probably wouldn't like it. Because there were new, strange smells, not particularly good ones. There were sounds of laughter, and it wasn't particularly good laughter. All kinds of things that weren't particularly good, but pirate things. Asher Robin had nearly forgotten all these things and all the pirate ways and what he saw and what he heard and what people looked like and what people did. He had nearly forgotten all of it. It had been over a year since he was last in the company of pirates, and it was well over a few years since he had been here. Well, he kept walking. He was curious to see why there were now 3 pirate ships here all at once. I suppose it's not a unusual thing, but typically you'd have 1 or 2 and a few that was staying for long, but there was 2 that had just come in over the past few days. That was very interesting. That was very rare. That typically did not happen. They were months apart. Maybe pirates would come for weeks, but any matter, it wasn't that big of a deal because things happened. So Asher kept walking. He wanted to talk to somebody, but he didn't recognize everybody, and nobody really seemed particularly interested in talking to him. So that was until when he had been walking through for nearly half an hour, looking at pirates and looking at different things that were for trade, somebody recognized him. A big man with big hands and a very loud, friendly voice went, "Asher?" He walked up to him and placed both of his hands on his shoulders, which I tell you was quite a terrifying thing for Asher, because those hands were way larger than his shoulders and pretty much enveloped his entire upper body. He turned around and saw before him a giant man, a man he knew. "Spades!" Asher Robin said, and then, seeing that the man had a smile and was very friendly, he reached out his arms and hugged the big man. When I say big man, I mean it. He was massive. You see, this fella, whose name was called Spades, although that wasn't his real name, that's just what everybody called him, he was huge. I think I've said that already. Well, he was a little bit younger in the mind than his actual age, I should say, but he was still very friendly, very nice man, and he was, of course, a pirate, and he knew Asher from many, many years ago. They used to play together. Like I said, he's younger in the mind, and really enjoyed the company of a young pirate when Asher was 3, and when Asher was 4, and when Asher was 6, when Asher was 7, the times when he had come and visited this place. You see, Spades actually lived there. He couldn't comprehend situations too quickly, and so he didn't make for good at raiding, although he was very big, and so he made great for loading and unloading, which he did free of charge at the at this pirate covert. And so he dwelt there, and everybody seemed to appreciate him and to use him. Well, the man seemed to grow and grow and grow and never stop growing, for he was twice the height of Asher Robin. I tell you, twice the height of an 11-year-old boy is quite the accomplishment, and he was at least four times in shoulder width than Asher. So he was a very large man, and he had a penchant for cakes and other sweet things. So he wasn't just large in height and width, but in his stomach. He was a very large man. But with that large man came a large friendly heart and a friendly smile and a hug back. He pretty much enveloped Asher, and if you had seen the hug from behind or any other angle, you would have thought that that child was swallowed up by the man in his baggy pirate clothing. But Asher came out, wiped his nose, and said, "How have you been, and are you still here?" "Oh, yes," said Spades, "I'm still here. Where else would I go, little man? And what about you? It has been a pretty year since I've seen you about." "Oh, me, well, you're still with... Oh, that captain. You know that one, the one that you were with." "Griffin," said Asher. Yes, Griffin," said Spades. No, I'm not with him. We parted ways. Well, a year ago or so, probably a year or so, about more than that. And I haven't actually seen him since, although I should like to. We left on decent terms, but I couldn't continue on with his crew. "Oh, why not? Did not he raise you? I thought you were his for a long while." "Oh, I was," said Asher, "but I couldn't keep going on doing pirate things, you see, and, well..." "Whoa, what have you been doing now?" Spade said in his slow voice. "Well, I believe in Jesus, and that's what I've been doing. See, if you must know, I came upon an island, and, well, I found a Bible, or at least a Bible came to me, and I've been reading it and learning more about God and his love." "Oh," said Spades. He hadn't thought much about that topic, although he had heard things here and there and different sayings, but he hadn't given the thought of God and Jesus much thought. It's been good for you?" "Oh, better than you can imagine, Spades, and it would be good for you too if you should accept it." "Oh, I don't accept much, but I suppose if I can see..." You can see, I suppose. I brought my Bible. I've left it at my ship, but I would bring it for you, and you can see it and read it for yourself." "Oh, no, me, I don't read," said Spades. "Oh, you know." And then he smacked him on the shoulder. Asher practically almost fell to the floor, but he steadied himself and said, "Yeah, okay, well, hey, I could tell you all about it." "No, I think I'll go. I have the ship to unload just came in. That's Captain Hark, and, well, Hark needs to get someplace and somewhere, and he's got lots of cargo to unload, so I'll go help there." "Okay." Now Spade spoke in his slow, usual deep voice, and then he started to walk away. "But Spades," said Asher Robin. "Oi, boy. I say, I am looking for a captain. Griffin, of course, I would love to see him. So if you do see him, tell him I say hello, and then I wish to see him someday. But I also am looking for a Captain Sparks. Have you heard of him?" "Sparks? Oh, Sparks. Yes. He's the one with the cannons. Oh, Sparks, yes. You know why they call him Sparks?" I guess no, I don't, but you've seen him?" "Yeah, they call him Sparks because he shoots his cannons. And you can see the sparks from the wicks going down, 10 at a time. Boom, 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 boom." "Okay, thank you, Spades, but you've seen him. When did you last see him?" "All time. He come here lots. I say, he brings people and comes here and stays a bit, goes out and brings more people. It's a new thing he's been doing, I guess. But hey, he is here now. I should say he just got here." He's here and he just got here?" "Well, maybe not just got here, but he's been here for a few days. And hey, you can see him if you like. I didn't know you were with him." "Well, I'm not, but I know him, and we have spoken. We didn't leave on the best of terms, but I guess you could say that, I have something of his, and that something should like to say hello." Well, at this time, Asher realized that he hadn't actually seen Howie in a bit. He had been so focused on seeing the pirates that Howie had just kept on swinging in the trees. Well, of course, Howie was nearby, and at this time, Howie let out a screech, because he was so nearby he could hear Asher Robin's conversations, and yet he didn't go down, as if the monkey knew that if he showed himself, others might recognize him as Sparks' monkey and not Asher's, and he did not want his time with Asher to be known or to end, and so he stayed hidden, hiding on the roofs and up on the caves and outside, but he howled so that Asher would know. "Well," said Spades, I best be going, but you'll find Sparks here. You know him. Okay, I will go now. You take care, Robin. Oh, Asher, Robin. And my boy, it was good to see you. Well, you too, Spades, and I should say that I will pray for you, and I want God to reach out and to tell you about himself. And he does, and he will. I want him to show himself to you. Oh, okay. Well, I'll go now then, Asher. You take care. Okay, bye. Asher felt a little sad because Spades had shown very little interest in what he was saying, and I know Asher didn't say it entirely smoothly, but he just wished that somebody, somewhere, at some time would be soft to this wonderful gospel that he had. Well, at least he had a lead. He knew Sparks was here. But where? There's so many pirates. He's already been here for almost an hour. He ran after Spades again. "Say, Spades." "Hey, Asher, good to see you again." Yes, sorry to interrupt you. One last question. Where might I find Sparks? You said he's been here for a few days. Where is he staying? I didn't see his ship here. Oh, yes. Well, his ship is down the coast. You see, he came via a smaller skiff. I think his ship is quite full, you see, and, well, there's many sounds coming from it, if you know what I mean. Oh, sounds like people? Well, that I think so. But I tell you, he does stay here. He's by the inn, you know the one. All the rooms and the many rooms with the many beds. Yes, he's there. At the back, you'll see. And, I guess you could ask for him there. There's nobody at the desk, really. But hey, you could ask for him there. Okay, Spades, thank you so much. And he ran off. So, Asher Robin journeyed to the back of the cave. Again, like I said, it was quite a vast network of caves with corridors and openings. And he did find that inn. He had stayed there before with Griffin. This time it was just him. "You staying here for a penny?" said a lady who was at the desk. Oh no, I don't need to stay here, but I'm looking for a friend." "Oh, friend, hey boy, what kind of friend?" "Oh, just, a captain. He's not my captain, but he's a captain, and, well, I have something of his." "Oh, something, I can take that something for you." "No, it's fine, it's rather personal that I wish to deliver right to him. Captain Sparks, have you seen him?" "Sparks, hey, Sparky, yeah, no, of course. He's been here, he is here. Oh, there he is, sitting in the corner there." And Asher, the whole world to him seemed to go quiet. He turned his head, and he saw Captain Sparks sitting at a table. You see, the last time Asher Robin saw Captain Sparks, you may remember this from a few chapters ago, well, the captain had intended on selling him as a slave and making some money. Asher was freed by the howler monkey and ran away with that very howler monkey. So he had basically stolen Sparks' payday for his own self and Howie the monkey. So he was quite angry when he saw Asher Robin, and Asher Robin knew this. Sparks stood up with a smile. "There be that kid! Ho, that kid!" He pointed his finger, which I tell you was actually just a great hook. And he said, "That kid, Asher, right?" Asher Robin nodded. "Priesty, God's pirate," Asher said clearly. Well, the room stopped at this point. This was quite the yell, and everybody looked at him. And Sparks said, "Get him!" I tell you, 4 massive pirates stood and ran toward Asher. Before Asher could do anything, he was taken in the hands of these massive men. And Asher didn't really want to do anything. He didn't want to run. He wanted to talk to Sparks. Here he was. So Asher was dragged toward him and slumped down in a chair. Well, the dealings of the inn seemed to go back to themselves, and now Asher sat at a table across from this Captain Sparks. Rope were tied around Asher's hands and his feet so that he couldn't run and he would need to be carried. "Don't need you running away now, do we, lad?" said Captain Sparks. "Tell me, what have you come here to do? Return Howard to me." "Well," said Asher, "I have come, but to ask you to return something to me." "Oh, look at this one, trying to bargain with me. You're in ropes. Ha ha ha! What do I have that you want? You're the one who took my monkey," said Sparks. "Well, for that I'm sorry. I shouldn't think that I took him, that he rather took me, and he wanted to come with me, but he is here, and I suppose if you say he's yours, then you can have him if you can catch him." At this, Asher heard another howl, a screech, as if Howie had heard him and understood his betrayal. The monkey screeched. It sounded sad, and Asher wished he hadn't said anything about that Howie, but he needed to make conversation. He needed to get to the reason why he was here. He hoped Howie would understand. And then he said it. "You've taken the parents of my friends, and, well, I would like you to return them." "I'm a pirate! What do you mean, your friends?" "Oh, no. If I've taken something, I've taken it. It's mine, or I've sold it, and you're not getting it back." These are people, Sparks. Parents with children, small children. I mean, their son is 6 years old. And, well, they should go home. You know that. I tell you, money is money. And, well, when you fear the job, you get it done." Fear the job, said Asher. "Why not fear God?" Here we go. God again. What do you have to say about a God to a man who roams the seas? There's no God on the seas but whales, fish, and dragons, I tell you. "They came from somewhere," said Asher. "They did. This all came from somewhere." "I suppose. But what does that have to do with anything?" "Well, who made your ship?" "I don't know. But you know it has a builder." "Of course. The wood doesn't just pile itself upon each other. Nails don't just fly from the sea and put a boat together. Well, just like you can see a ship, you know there's a builder. You can see the world, lands, and everything, and know there's a builder. And that's God. And he's revealed himself, how he did all things, and his power in his holy book. You know what else he says there? Oh, what else? Tell me, priesty boy, before I throw you into the ocean. He says he loves you. That's right, Sparks. Even you, a pirate who took parents, who would sell a child. He loves you. That's right. He loves you. And that's why I'm here. I want these parents back, but I want you to know how much you love. Here we go again. You telling me about some love from something in the sky. I don't want to hear it. Men, take him away. We're going to feed him to the white. With that, Asher Robin had a dreadful feeling come over him. A bag over his head so he couldn't see. And then a great man lumped him over his shoulder. Asher didn't bother fighting. He didn't bother screaming. And he had this wonder come upon him. Wonder, what was the white? And then he saw it in his memory, as if it were a picture. That great, big, white shark swimming next to his boat.
What happens?
Asher thought that he was about to be the supper for that shark. Alright, The Adventures of Asher Robin
God's Pirate, Book 1, Dawn of the Greatest Treasure Hunt,
Chapter 11.
The First Battle.
The first battle.
I told you in the last chapter that Asher Robin was afraid he was going to be fed to that shark. Well, I will tell you now that he is going to be, but the shark is not going to eat him. I know it's kind of a spoiler alert, but I already told you that shark didn't like pirates, and he had an opportunity to knock over Asher's boat when they were sailing to that pirate island, but it did not. So we must remember that Asher is in God's hands, and so is this shark whom God has made. Now, you may be wondering, why am I spoiling the suspense for you, dear reader? Well, if you were like my boys, they didn't take too keenly to finding out about the threat upon Asher's life. So I must also warn you that there will be plenty of other threats coming in this chapter, for it is called the First Battle. Now, we were debating what to call this chapter. The battle for Asher Robin, Asher Robin's first battle, crazy ninja monkey moves. But we decided just to go with the first battle. And this, dear reader, this is the first battle. You see, I had explained that Asher had somebody put a bag over his head. He was slung over a big old pirate's shoulders. Well, they couldn't settle their business in the covert. It was against the pirate cove. And so they took him to the sea. And they figured there was an old pirate superstition that if you fed that great big white shark, that you would have good favor with it as you sailed. Of course, you and I know how ridiculous that is, and that superstitions are nothing to give heed to. However, Captain Sparks was unaware of such, and he thought if he fed this great white, as he had many, many times before, if he fed the white, then he would have smooth sailing on the way out and the way back. But this would be the last time he sailed as the captain of his ship. More spoilers. We must get on with the story. They took him out, led him by the skiff all the way down to where Sparks was keeping his ship, which was docked just down the coast. They loaded him up. He still hadn't seen, but he knew what was happening. He had been on a pirate ship before. He had been hoisted up on it before. He was slumped down on the deck. And then they took the blindfolds off, the hood off. Not too sure why they put it on in the first place, but now he could see he was surrounded by strong pirates, and they were setting sail in the direction that he had come, the direction that he had seen the white. Well, it would only be half a day until they find that great big creature. Again, I say that the size of that shark was terrific. You would think that it was about a half, maybe even a third, maybe even a half the size of that pirate ship.
I think it's the size of this room.
Much, much bigger than this room. I guarantee you it is longer than any room any kid is sitting in at this moment.
It's a tiger shark.
Unless, of course, it's being read in a school gym, then perhaps it's only half, but we don't know.
It's a whale shark.
It's a big, great white shark. It's a great white shark.
Great white sharks are that big?
Well, in this story, this one is. This one is that big. The very old creature. And so, they spotted it on the horizon near the evening. That great big white fin. Now, I won't build up any suspense. The plank was drawn out, and Asher was walked to the end. And as they were leaving the covert, the Howie the Howler monkey had jumped down onto Captain Sparks. Captain Sparks was happy to see him, and Howie seemed happy as well. Asher Robin understood that, as he had said he would give Howie back in exchange for Shiloh and Ruby's parents, Howie had seen that as a betrayal. And Howie thought Asher didn't want him anymore. That's at least what Asher thought. And so Sparks was happy to have his monkey back, and Howie was happy to be going with Asher Robin. And so they were both on that ship at that time. Howie stood
on Sparks' shoulder with his head on his hat. And Asher Robin was led to the end of that gangplank. He turned around and said, "Captain Sparks, I must ask you one more time. Believe upon the Lord. Nothing else is going to save you but God. He can and He will forgive you if you turn from your sins. And if you believe in Jesus Christ, you'll have eternal life. There is no greater promise. Enough with this," said Sparks. "Jump overboard or you will be pushed." Well, it was at saying that Ruby decided to swing in. That's right. Rubina and Shiloh had snuck aboard the ship. They had done pretty much exactly what Asher Robin had done, hiding in the skiff, hiding behind, dangling in the water. You see, the pirates were so busy and they were hauling some stuff back that they were able to creep on along. Well, Rubina was a little hesitant to bring Shiloh at first, but if she left him back on the beach or back on the cliff there, it wouldn't be good. You see, they were on top of the covert, and they had seen Asher Robin getting hauled out. Sure, he had a bag over his head, but it was a curious sight, and they looked, and they could tell it was his little green vest and his brown trousers. It was that same Asher Robin. And so they followed those pirates, and they hopped on the skiff and hid, and they dragged themselves in the water, holding on to a rope. And it was quite the trek, but they remained unseen, and they remained hidden behind there. And when they got to the pirate ship, they climbed up last, and up they went on the other side of the boat. And so then, while everybody was focused on Sparks and Asher Robin, they had climbed up the mast. Shiloh had stayed below, hiding behind some crates and near a net, but Ruby had climbed up the mast, and she had held onto a rope. She wasn't too sure what she was going to do. She had done plenty of swinging around a ship before, over long hauls when she was out fishing with her father. But this was different. This was a pirate ship, and she didn't know if the rope would hold her or what she was going to do, but she needed to see what was going to happen. And sure enough, when Asher Robin was told to jump off, she knew it was now or never. She didn't know how she was going to fight all those pirates, but she knew she had to try. She drew her sword and yelled, "For the Lord!" And she jumped down off the mast and hung so tightly to that rope. Her foot was in one of the loops, and she swung. She couldn't swing to where Asher Robin was, which was good. She probably would have knocked him over off the side. And then she landed right there next to Sparks with her sword drawn and took a swing. Well, Sparks was quick. When he heard her voice and saw her coming, he pulled out his sword, and the two parried, steel going ting, 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 and she ran away from him. And Howard, the howler monkey, started to screech, and he wrapped his hands around Sparks so that he couldn't see, and Sparks started to fall over. Well, Rubina figured she would run to where Asher was, because now there were pirates coming toward Asher. And this, my friend, this is the telling of the first battle. Rubina ran past some other pirates toward where Asher Robin was, but there was a big pirate with his sword out, and she had to parry against it. She had to parry against the sword. Ting, 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 ting. And I tell you now, Asher Robin, as he was coming back over the gangplank, and this is the part where I don't want you to be afraid of, because remember, everything is fine, but when he was coming back, a pirate, a particularly mean pirate, the first mate of the fishing vessel, a very terrible, terrible man, whose name was Clubs. He was the brother of Spades, but he was smarter. And he wasn't as big, but he was just as strong. And he pulled out his pistol, and he fired at Asher Robin. Well, I tell you, a pirate's gun isn't that great. And he missed, but it didn't seem that way. The shot had scared Asher Robin, and he lost his footing. One of his feet went over the plank, and he fell down into the water. Well, from the sight of it, Rubina yelled, "No!" because she had thought that Asher had been hit. But now she was in the thick of it. There were pirates all over with swords out and pistols drawn. Shiloh screamed as well. He hopped on top of the crate, pulled out his slingshot, started slinging little rocks at the pirates. Thing, 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 hitting him in the head, which was really annoying for the pirates. And some of them fell over, and some of them ran away from the constant barrage of rocks. And so Shiloh and Ruby fought for their dear lives, but their dear friend Asher had fallen into the ocean. Well, when he fell, he could very well tell that the shark was around him, but the shark did not do anything. He was so full of fear, but then he
had a peace come over him, and he remembered Jonah when he was cast into the deep, and he was swallowed by that great fish, and he was sustained inside that great fish for 3 days before he was spat out. He knew that story was possible again. So even if the shark came and ate him, he believed that God would keep him safe in that fish. But the shark did not come and eat him. No, like I said, the shark was made by God, and the shark could tell that this boy was a good little boy with good intentions, and a great plan was for him. And so the shark distanced itself, and then it swam very fast toward the ship, and boom, smashed up against the rear of the ship, which caused the whole thing to tip. It did not tip over, but it tipped enough for every single pirate that was standing, fighting Rubina and fighting Shiloh, to fall flat on their face and drop their swords. Well, Shiloh wasn't expecting that either, and he fell off of his crate. Rubina fell to the ground as well and slid to the edge of the deck, but she was steadied, and Howie quickly jumped to grab her and make sure that she was fine. He handed her a rope and ran along the deck, because he was a very sly little monkey. Ran along the deck to Shiloh and made sure he had a rope as well, because no one knew what caused the ship to turn as such and to tip as such, and no one knew if it was going to happen again. Well, Sparks was terrified at this point. There was a little girl and 2 little boys who were causing such havoc, and his monkey had turned against him, and he was hit in the head with a rock, and now his ship seemed to be going under. He ran over to the side of the deck, and he could see that great big white shark in the water next to Asher Robin, coming back toward the ship again. But bam, hit it again. This time it had swayed to the other side, so it swayed back, jostling again. Crates flew up in the air and smashed against the ground, setting apples all over the place and all kinds of food and supplies. While Asher and Shiloh, Shiloh and Ruby clung so tightly to the ropes that they were perfectly safe. And now Howie was clinging to Ruby quite as well. And then he could see that Asher was still in the water. He was perfectly safe, and the shark was swimming past him, ramming against the ship. Well, the shark rammed so hard it did not make a hole in the ship, but it sure knocked his teeth out. And so the next meal he had was quite difficult, but just like any shark, his teeth would come back. But now there were pirates falling into the water because the ship kept getting slammed, and they were so quick and pained to try to scurry up. And Asher Robin was let down a rope by Howie, and that's how he got back on board. Well, when Asher Robin got to the back, he was quite dizzy from his fall into the ocean, and he was soaking wet with seawater. But so were plenty of other pirates, who were quite terrified, moaning and groaning as they crawled along the very wet, messy deck. Captain Sparks was nowhere to be found. And Rubina, she stood, and seeing that the scene was calm and no pirates were coming against him, she ran and she hugged Asher Robin, as did Shiloh. And he said, "Thank you so much for coming. We'll catch up later," said Rubina. "We must find that captain. I will have my revenge now." And this is the part where you may have forgotten, but she had come all this way to find her parents, but also to take revenge on them, on the captain. "I will find out what he has if I have to take his other hand for it," she said. This was a very cruel thing, she said, and of course she wouldn't, but she almost wondered if she meant it. Asher Robin hurried after her. He was without words. He simply followed her. He would stop her from doing anything foolish, of course. They went into the captain's quarters where Captain Sparks was sitting worriedly at the edge of his bed, clinging to the post. The rocking had ceased, and he stood and said, "You! How has this occurred? Who? What?" He was so confused. Rubina, holding her sword, came at him at once, charged him, and put the sword on his shoulder and said, "Tell me where my parents are. You remember them." And she told him their names and told him where she was from. "Where did you bring them? Tell me, where did you bring them now, and I may just spare you?" Asher Robin came quickly and said, "Hold, Rubina, not like this. He will tell us, won't you, Captain Sparks?" Captain Sparks just kept murmuring to himself. He was so confused as to how a little boy could conjure such strength, and how a shark would come to the rescue of some little boy of whom he was supposed to eat. He didn't understand. Asher Robin placed his hand on Rubina's shoulder and said, "Stop it." And she said, "If you won't tell us, then I will do what I must." And with that, Asher Robin did something that Rubina did not like, and she would not let him live it down for a while. He knocked the sword out of her hand with his boot, and then tied her hands behind his back.
Captain Sparks made a start as well, but Asher tripped him and tied his hands behind his back and dragged them together, tying them together into one lump, and they were angry, back to back. Rubina was shouting, "Asher, what are you doing? How could you do this? I just saved yourself." And Captain Sparks says, "What is going on, boy? What is going on?" Asher Robin decided that this was a time for them to talk. And so, going out, he spoke to the crew and said, "Who is with me?" Well, one man came forward, a larger man, whose name was Jack. And he came and said, "If anything, you seem to have the God of the seas by your side. Oh, he's the God of the seas and the sky and the mountains and everything, the whole world. He's the God of the Bible. That is who is on my side." "Well, he surely is real," said that pirate. Well, at this time Shallow saw Rubina, his sister, tied up, and said, "What is this, Asher? Why have you tied up Ruby? Why is Ruby tied up with Sparks?" Asher came to the little boy and put his hand on his shoulder and said, "Please trust me. Everything will be fine. Now come." And so with that, Clubs, the first mate, second hand to Captain Sparks. He wasn't so fond of Asher Robin. He had fallen in the water, gone to his skiff. Well, I think all the men that had fallen in the water also went to that boat too. And all those pirates stayed at the bottom, with no rope and no crew to bring them up. No ladder. So, after a while of waiting there, while Asher Robin discussed things with Captain Sparks and Rubina in their quarters, the men decided that the battle for their ship was lost, and that somehow these children had taken it. They did not want to leave their ship, but I tell you, the great white shark was swimming around, and they had great fear of it. So, hesitantly, they started to row back to shore, which wasn't all too far away for them. And so they escaped with their lives. But they had great bitterness toward Asher, and Clubs would surely come back again someday. As for Asher, and what happens next, I will tell you, is very exciting. He opens up the Bible, and he tells Captain Sparks the truth. And this we will tell in the next chapter, which is called The Greatest Treasure Found. The Adventures of Asher Robin. Book 1. Dawn of the Greatest Treasure Hunt.
Chapter 12.
The Greatest Treasure Found. Now, I had told you that there were a few members of the crew who hadn't fallen, and when they saw that Captain Sparks had been tied up, and that large man, whose name was Jack, was with Asher now, for he saw the great work of God in saving him from that white shark, in fact using the white shark to disturb the plans of the pirates and to overthrow the entire thing for Asher's favor, and he knew that there's some power behind it, and so he would work with Asher Robin. Well, Asher Robin bid him to stay there, and to lower down, to come back, sail back to the island. Well, this was quite interesting because it was his first command sailing that ship, and they did. They went to the dock of the pirate covert, and you see, they really hoped pirates wouldn't come aboard and see that Captain Sparks had been tied up, although pirate business was quite interesting, and this may not have been of concern to some other onlookers. Captain Sparks was well known and revered, and anybody who had time to tie him up surely was due some questioning. And yet, nobody came aboard, but Asher left. He went to the cleft of the rock where he had left his Bible at Rubina and Shiloh's camp. Sure enough, it was still there, along with their packs and all their supplies. And he hoisted it and grabbed it and walked back. And then he came to Sparks, and he said to him, Listen now to what I'm saying to you. You have seen the power of God. You know that it was the power of God that saved me. I was shot at, I was thrown in the sea,
with a great terrible beast, and yet here I am. And I say this is because God wants me to speak with you. And so I beg you to listen to what I have to say, Captain Sparks. You too, Rubina. She growled at him. Listen, Ruby, you must hear what I have to say. I know you believe this man incurable. I know you believe this man to be so wicked, such a horrible pirate that he could never come to be forgiven. But I tell you, anybody can be forgiven. You see, there was once this man whose name was Paul. Do you know him? St. Paul, said Ruby. Captain Sparks had said that he had heard something of the matter. Well, said Asher, I tell you now that he would kill Christians, and he persecuted the early church. It was a terrible thing. You might as well call him just as bad as any pirate. The worst pirate captain was this man whose name was actually once Saul. Well, guess what happened? Captain Sparks looked up. Jesus came to him. And I want you to read it. I won't read it for you, but I will show it to you, and you read it. He turned to the page from the book of Acts where Paul recounts, or where Luke wrote about Paul's meeting with Jesus and his blindness and conversion. And so Captain Sparks read it. And at last he said, Why are you persecuting me? Reading aloud the text. Why are you kicking against the pricks? And with that, his voice disappeared. Seeing that he wasn't going to read anymore, Asher said, You know what happened? He surrendered. And he put his faith and his trust in the Lord Jesus Christ, who is risen from the dead. And he was forgiven. And he became a leader in the church. It looks like, from what I read, he started churches and led churches and wrote many letters to churches and encouraged churches. He built the thing he was trying to destroy by the grace of God. So, Rubina, nobody is too terrible for God to change. And Captain Sparks, you have seen him work. Think about it. Of all the people in the ocean, I snuck onto your ship all those weeks ago, and I told you the gospel. Sure, it wasn't a pretty one, but it was what I had, and I said it to you. And then what happens next? But you see me here in this pirate land. You see me again, and you hear it again, and you try to kick against the pricks, and you try like an oxen who doesn't want to plow the field or go forth. You kick against me, and you kick against God, and you want to push me oversea, and you do end up pushing me oversea, bullets flying past me, and I fall into the ocean with that great beast, that monster of a white shark. And what happens? The shark assails your boat in my favor, and I escape, and have your ship, and have you, and have your crew. So why? Why are you kicking against the pricks? Jesus is after you. Can you not see that? God is after you. Please, Captain Sparks, please. Asher was yelling at this point, begging with him. He fell on his knees and was begging with Captain Sparks, and finally Captain Sparks began to weep, and he said, Yes, 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 amidst all his crying. You see, what I will tell you is what Captain Sparks took a great deal of time to explain to Asher, but he was familiar with that portion of Scripture. You see, he grew up a church boy. His mother taught him lessons. His father was always away and had died on a fishing boat in a fishing sea. Died in the sea off a fishing vessel when he was young. But he had read that before, and he never understood it. He never understood the expression. He was not a farmer, and nobody would explain it to him. Nobody explained it to him. There were many things in the Bible that he did not understand, and so he thought it to be nonsense. But then he understood. He understood that there was someone somewhere after his heart. And so he wept, and he told Asher that he
he believed. Well, Asher began to cry as well, for he was so happy, and he started to realize that he had found a great treasure, a soul saved for God. That was the greatest treasure, you see. This entire book, the treasure hunt, that is what it is. You see, God treasures the soul of every human, and he wants them for his own. And he wants to pour his love upon them, not just the blessing of rain, but the blessing of forgiveness through his Son. That's what he wants. And so, Asher Robin had found the treasure that was Captain Sparks' heart. And I tell you, his name was not Captain Sparks. No, his name was Samuel. He had found that man again and delivered him unto the kingdom of God. That, my dear friends, my reader, my little brethren, that is the greatest treasure. And if you were to seek after one soul in the name of Christ, and if you found that one soul for Christ, I tell you, you will experience the greatest treasure hunt and find the greatest treasure, God's treasure, which is a soul, and that means yours as well. Yes, you are God's treasure. And so, with great rejoicing, Asher untied Captain Sparks, and Ruby as well, who had tears of her own, and she stood feeling embarrassed that she had actually wanted to take Captain Sparks' life. And now she stood there before this man who seemed very different. His face was kinder, his eyes were lighter, and he took off his pirate hat and placed it on Asher's head. Although it bore many wears and holes, it was a kind gesture. Captain Sparks said, "I say, Asher Robin, I ought to give you my ship. For you, your mission is quite the thing." Oh, Asher Robin smiled. "Would you join us then? I ask you to bring me to the mainland. I cannot join you now. Maybe one day, but I must find my family. After all these years, my mother probably thinks I am dead. I have a sister too, and 2 little brothers, and, well, who knows what they have brought forth. I ought to find them, and I ought to share with them what has happened to me all these long years." He started to get emotional again. "Thank you, you young boy. I cannot thank you enough for coming to me, and I am so dreadfully sorry that I threw you into the sea, and that I ever crossed my mind to sell you." Asher Robin said, "I forgive you. Oh, I forgive you, for I have been forgiven much, hey?" And the two laughed. And then Howie came down and landed on Asher Robin's shoulder. And, well, what happened next was they set sail. They went back, and Asher Robin asked if Spades would like to join him on his crew, and said that he was now a new pirate captain, and he would be getting a crew together. Spades said no, that he was happy there, had everything figured out. Asher Robin would be back to that pirate covert, of course, but he wanted to set sail immediately to fulfill his promise to Samuel, Captain Sparks, to drop him off at the mainland. And of course, we must get to the business of Rubina and Shiloh's parents. Well, Captain Sparks was talking now, and he would answer any question anyone had. And so, before they set sail, before they had decided on anything, Rubina looked to him and said, "Where are my parents? You recall us?" Captain Sparks nodded. "I do remember seeing you flee and run. Your father fought with bravery. We did not slay him, but we took him, a strong man. We sold him. A fair price he was to your mother as well." Who did you sell him to?" Well, this was quite a terrible thing, because Samuel felt very bad for all the things he had done, and it pained him to even speak of them. But Rubina tried her best to keep her emotions down and speak to him as if perhaps it wasn't him who had done that, but some former Captain Sparks, and not the Samuel fellow that was before her. In fact, that is the truth. For what is done in the past is done by another, some dead man. Anyways, Captain Sparks took a deep breath, and he said, "This is no easy thing to say, and their fate I know not. But there is a captain who has been purchasing many, many people lately. They say he has an island somewhere, and there is a great island and a great store of gold that he's been mining, and he forces these slaves in. Well, I can't know this for sure, but this is the riddle. This is the story. This is the rumor that is spread around the seas, and he's paying mightily for strong, dedicated workers. Well, it's been easiest to get them from these villages, you see. I remember so many faces, but I feel the Empire will be coming in soon, and so that was that was our last dash to get more, to make more money. Oh, the things we do for greed. I believe it's terrible, is it not, Asher Robin?" Asher Robin nodded. "It is terrible." "But who did you sell them to?" Rubina asked. Samuel looked very grim. "I sold them to none other than Captain Blackbones. He is the pirate who has been taking and buying these bodies, buying these slaves to work in some mysterious mine, supposedly. And he is a very hard man to find. In fact, I didn't sell to him directly, but to one of his henchmen." "Where was that?" "Well, not this covert, but another one. Not too far from the mainland, actually. It's 4 days' journey west." "West?" "That's right. I thought pirates didn't go to the west. Pirates go all over. 4 days' journey to the west, on the northern coast. And there you will find another covert. It is difficult to see, but I will show you on a map, if we can find one. Once we get to the mainland, we will find one, and I'll show you on this map." And so, that is what would happen. Asher Robin took control of that ship, and it was his going forward. And Samuel, who used to be Captain Sparks, sailed with them as they went back to the mainland. And there, Captain Sparks would be left, and he would draw them a map that would show them where to go to get to Blackbones Gold.
Blackbones Gold.